With last night's ninth inning come-from-behind victory, the Boston Red Sox have struck the first blow in their three-game series against the Toronto Blue Jays. Now with 5 games to play, the Red Sox lead the American League East by 1 game. The survivor moves on to meet the defending world champion Oakland A's in the American League Championship Series. So today, the showdown in the East continues, Toronto versus Boston, as CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. And always a great setting, and this weekend particularly so. There is a division race at stake, and the Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays are battling with the season coming down to the end. And all eyes have been on Roger Clemens, who is trying to come back from tendonitis problem to pitch an important game for the Boston Red Sox this afternoon, who have a 1-game lead over the Toronto Blue Jays in the second game of this 3-game series. And there he is, listed as the pitcher. He has warmed up and apparently ready to go. And good afternoon again, everyone. I'm Dick Stockton, and tremendous drama. And a few moments ago, as Clemens, who warmed up for about 17 minutes, made his way to the dugout, there were cheers mounting here at Fenway Park, a capacity crowd, and nothing could be better, Jim Kaat, than a pennant race. And the question is about Roger Clemens. Apparently, he's going to pitch. Do you remember anything so dramatic about a leading man, whether he's going to go or the understudy before a big game?
I mean, 3 standing ovations just to go out and warm up. I haven't seen anything like this, I think. Koufax with the arthritic elbow drew a lot of attention, and then Steve Carlton in 1972, when he won about half of the Phillies games, they would hold the game up for 10 minutes while Lefty warmed up. But I have not seen this kind of excitement for a guy to just start a ball game. And the point with Roger Clemens, I think, starting the ball game, there's no guarantee he's going to pitch a winning ball game. I mean, a guy like Mike Boddicker, an off-speed type pitcher, can pitch with a sore arm because he depends on curveballs, changeups. Clemens needs power, he needs control, and with a sore arm, he may not have either of those.
Now, the Red Sox were trailing by a game and a half after Monday's action. They have come back to even things and now have taken a lead. What do you make of this race with 5 games left? Toe-to-toe, these two teams are playing.
I'll tell you, let's go around the stadium, the ballpark here, and ask everybody what they think. You can't figure this race out. If you saw last night's game, you know that baseball is to enjoy and not try to figure out. I mean, George Bell tried to sacrifice bunt. He's never done it. We saw the Blue Jays give up unearned runs. They lead the league in fewest unearned runs. Red Sox hit more homers than Toronto. They never do that. So it's going to be right down to the last weekend as it should be. Let's just sit back and enjoy it.
And let's also mention that Todd Stottlemyre has a very important responsibility today to draw the Blue Jays even in Game 2. Back with the starting lineups in just a moment.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Toyota's quality line of cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me. Nike, who reminds you to just do it. And by Extra Strength Rolaids with 1,000 milligrams of fast relief.
Back at Fenway Park in Boston, the Red Sox have taken the field. Defensively, Jim, why don't you take us around against the Blue Jays today?
Wow, the usual lineup for the Red Sox. They'll have Mike Greenwell in left, and their best all-around player, Ellis Burks, in center. Tom Bernansky is over and right. On the infield, Wade Boggs at third. Luis Rivera will play short. Jody Reed at second, and Carlos Quintana at first, and Tony Pena will do the catching, and we all know who's out there after warming up and all the attention and ovations. Roger Clemens will do the pitching.
His first start since September 4th due to an inflammation fluid in his right shoulder, which has dominated the baseball news here in Boston. Let's take a look now at the batting order that Clemens will face for the Toronto Blue Jays, and it will feature 4 switch hitters. Mookie Wilson leading off at center field. Tony Fernandez hitting second at shortstop. Kelly Gruber hitting third. Fred McGriff batting cleanup. He's at first base. George Bell will be the left fielder hitting number 5. John Olerud is the designated hitter today, batting 6th. Greg Myers is catching, hitting 7th. Manny Lee, the second baseman, batting in the 8th slot, and Junior Felix, who hit a 2-run homer last night, seemingly to put the Blue Jays maybe in front for good, but no, the Red Sox came back with 2 in the bottom of the 9th to win it. The umpires working this important series. Drew Coble will call balls and strikes. Dave Phillips, the crew chief, is at first base. Tim Welke will umpire at second, and Jim McKean is over at third. So the Red Sox have won 3 in a row after being shaky after Clemens could not pitch, and the Blue Jays are riding a 3-game losing streak right now.
Well, I think what the Red Sox have done in these last few games to get back in the race and now take the lead is they have understood the fact that with or without Roger, they have to go out and play good baseball. That's what they try to put the Clemens thing in the back of their mind and just go out and attack today's game. And as a result of that attitude, they're back in first place.
Mookie Wilson will lead off for the Blue Jays, a switch hitter who has been struggling as of late, has only 1 hit in 16 times to the plate during the current road trip. Wade Boggs is playing on the edge of the grass at third. Outfield is straight away. You'll hear a big cheer if it's a strike from Clemens. And it's low, ball 1. Clemens, with a record of 20-6, still leads the American League in earned run average with 1.98. That's in there.
Oh, that's the 4th. See now, he's thrown 2 pitches and he got 4 ovations. That's not bad, Mookie says. And that one at 88 miles an hour. Throw a little harder than that.
And a high chopper, gloved nicely by Boggs, and the throw to first in time. Wade Boggs has played some impressive third base despite the fact that he is really bothered with a bad back.
Yeah, you know, the strength of this team has been their effective starting pitching, but to back that pitching up, it's plays like this. Wade Boggs in the last week has made more good plays at third base to help win games and doesn't get much recognition for it.
1 out. Here is Tony Fernandez, the switch hitting shortstop. His 17 triples tops the major leagues. He has an 8-game hitting streak. Always an outstanding defensive shortstop. He's come alive a little more at the plate. First pitch, fastball fouled away. Strike 1. On deck is Kelly Gruber. A potent batting order for the Toronto Blue Jays. Seemingly a team that has it all, but then when you watch them play, you see that fundamentally they're more unsound than sound.
Yeah, they give you a few extra outs. Made a lot of mistakes on the bases.
Tony Pena in his familiar crouch fastball, and that's a good one. And he had to be in the 90s with that one.
I'll tell you what he's doing right now. If he only makes it for 2 innings, I think psychologically he has lifted this ball club and this crowd already.
Here is the 0-2 pitch. That's low. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Realistically, how long could Clemens work after being hurt and not pitching since the beginning of the
You know, they want to put a limit on him, 3 innings, 5 innings, just like they didn't know if he could pitch. I don't think they can answer that right now.
In the dirt.
You see that pitch right there, and that might have an effect. That was the fork ball or the split finger. And oftentimes the sore arm doesn't affect your fastball as much as the breaking pitch right there. You see a little more touch and feel to throw those kind of pitches, and Clemens may not have that.
The count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. And another low pitch, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Fernandez. Roger Clemens is 2-0 against the Blue Jays this year. We saw him in Toronto when he spun a brilliant 1-0 shutout when the Red Sox hurled 3 shutouts and taking 3 out of 4 from the Blue Jays, and seemingly we're on their way. Here's the payoff pitch. It's ball 4 and Fernandez is on. Here at Fenway Park, one of the old style parks, there are the dimensions. 302 notice down the right field line with a very small fence, but they've got the big wall in left field, 37 feet high, and then the net. There's the 379 mark, and notice how the wall angles there, and as you move towards right center field, the deepest part of the ballpark, you'll see the edge of where the bullpen is, and they can play pinball there as well.
Yeah, you got to know geometry to play in the field here at Fenway.
Kelly Gruber, the batter, with 1 out and 1 on, takes a strike.
Now, really, this is a thinking ball player's ballpark. When you're on the bases, you got to look where are the outfielders, the left fielders rather shallow, get a big lead off second. When you're in the field, you have to deal with all those angles. Not like coming into a modern stadium and just go out there and play.
Quintana holding the runner on, does not go, does Fernandez. Great fastball, swung and missed. Second in the league and runs batted in is Kelly Gruber of the Toronto Blue Jays, and he himself has made a great case for MVP honors with the September he's had.
Yeah, Clemens just blew a fastball past him, but it's been some of those 113 RBIs in the 9th inning the last 10 days, 2 weeks, that brought the Blue Jays back from 6.5 games out.
Tony Fernandez, who has 25 stolen bases. The runner at first. And he does not go, and the pitch is fouled off. Blue Jays have good speed, especially suited to their home ballpark in the Sky Dome on the artificial turf, not so much on the grass field.
Yeah, usually in this ballpark, teams tend to play station to station because you look at the monster and you say, let's just sit back and try to hit that. But the Blue Jays have to run a little bit more than most teams, and they do. They hit a lot of home runs, but they got to utilize that speed.
Fred McGriff is on deck. Runner does not go. The pitch is taken, and a bluff throw to first, and the count is a ball and 2 strikes. Joe Morgan, who in a rare move went out and watched Clemens warm up in the bullpen.
That gave you a little idea of the importance. I mean, usually the token thing is the pitching coach goes out to watch the pitcher warmed up. That started about the last 15-20 years. Cito Gaston watched the Blue Jays swing the bat and Clemens warm up.
Kelly Gruber, who had a 15-game hitting streak, snapped last night. Behind on the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Stays alive and fouls it off. Gruber is 5th in the league in home runs. But last night he made 2 throwing errors on consecutive plays that really opened the door for the Red Sox. Unusual for Gruber, who's played outstanding third base all season.
Now that tells you something about last night's game. Joe Morgan, standing in the dugout talking to his hitting coach Richie Hebner, said, I've been watching Gruber for 4 years in this ballpark. He never makes a bad throw. What does he do in the next few innings? Throws 2 of them away.
Fouls it back. So Clemens has to work, and Kelly Gruber keeps it alive. Had Clemens not been able to pitch today, the Red Sox were set to go with left-hander Joe Hesketh, who actually came in rotation when Clemens got hurt and started 2 games. But he never made it out to the bullpen. It seemed to be Clemens' show all the way.
I would think he's still sitting back in the clubhouse as a starting pitcher would prepare before a game, just in case he gets called on early in this one.
Count still 1 and 2. Inside, 2 balls and 2 strikes to Gruber. On deck, a very hot hitter, Fred McGriff, for the Blue Jays. In the number 3, 4, and 5 slots with Gruber, McGriff, and George Bell. There is Fred on deck. Toronto can do a lot of damage.
There are 3, 4, 5 hitters. That's got to be the strongest 3, 4, 5 hitters in the American League.
Fernandez doesn't go after bluffing, and another foul out of play.
Now, what this is doing right now also, you see Tony Pena chasing that foul pop into the stands, and about 4 foul balls that Gruber has hit. Clemens has had to throw a lot of pitches early in this ball game. I mean, they're happy that he's out there, but I'm sure they'd like to see him have a couple of easy innings to kind of get the feel of this game in the mound.
What's going through a Clemens' mind? You've been in a situation like this back in '67.
I think more than anything, just the game situation. Put the injury aside. You know, he went through that warming up. He probably wondered, you always go through that feeling, how's it going to feel? Then you get warmed up and you say, well, it still hurts a little bit, but I'm going out there. Once the game starts and you cross the line, you're just looking at Gruber and Fernandez and Bell, and you're forgetting about the injury. You'll deal with that when this game's over.
Gruber hanging on, has fouled off 6 pitches now from Roger Clemens. 1 out, top of the 1st inning. Crowd of over 30,000 on hand. In fact, last night at Fenway Park, the 35,000 plus represented the largest attendance here at this park since 1978.
Fans, I'm telling you, you walk around Fenway Park, you can sense how the fans are into the game. They pay attention here. I mean, they even last night when Pat Borders, the catcher, made a bad throw to second base prior to the start of the inning, they got on his case. They don't let you up for anything.
Go, Clemens!
Clemens has had a labor. Swung on and missed. A fastball up, and Gruber goes down. And there are 2 away, and crowd cheers the first strikeout of the game from Clemens.
There you see that power fastball. And when you see that shoulder motion, here you'll see the pitch come in, up and in on Gruber. He can't catch up with it. But when you see that shoulder motion and drive from Roger Clemens, that's really the thing that was responsible for this tendonitis.
He won that 10-pitch battle with Gruber, but here is Fred McGriff, who is tearing it up in September, has already hit 6 home runs in the final month. 2 out, Fernandez on. Strike 1 to McGriff, who is 4th in the league in home runs with 34.
You know, as a pitcher, you want to keep that front shoulder closed driving toward the hitter. And when Clemens was dueling with Dave Stewart, I think he wanted to throw so hard that front shoulder started flying open. You can see from that shot right there in his motion. And as a result, that's where you get this bicep tendonitis, that inflammation in the front part of the shoulder.
Down is 1-1 to McGriff, who was one of the discards of the New York Yankees and has come back to haunt them and the rest of the league. In tight, and a quick throw to first base, and Fernandez gets back. 2 down, Fernandez the runner at first. No score, top of the first. Red Sox winning last night 7-6. 5 games remain in this American League regular season. On the corner, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
See, look at that front shoulder, the left shoulder. Now watch him drive toward the hitter. Now, if that flies opens up a little too early, and you try to throw the ball a little harder than you normally do. That was just a breaking ball at 83 miles an hour. But that's when that front shoulder gives way a little bit. Or the front part of the throwing shoulder.
McGriff called time, and now Pena goes out to the mound.
Now, Pena made a lot of trips last night. I think Carlton Fisk, the ex-Red Sox catcher, is the one that's famous for making a lot of trips to the mound, but it never hurts as a catcher to find out ahead of time, hey, how do you want to go at this guy? Because McGriff is one of the Blue Jays hitters, done a lot of damage against Clemens.
Cincinnati Reds can clinch the National League West with a victory today over San Diego. Cubs lead the Mets 3-2, and the magic number is 3. Any combination of 3 Met losses or 3 Pirate wins will wrap it up for Pittsburgh. 2-2 pitch. Did he go around? He did, and McGriff strikes out, and the side is retired.
A little influence here by Pena and Clemens. They headed off the mound. Did he go around? Oh, yeah, he did.
Clemens strikes out 2 in the first inning. Blue Jays nothing. Red Sox coming to bat. Let's take a look at Toronto in the field, Jim.
George Bell will play left field, second night in a row. That allows John Olerud to be the designated hitter. Mookie Wilson in center, Junior Felix in right, and on the infield, normal alignment. Gruber, Fernandez, Lee, and McGriff. Behind the plate, Greg Myers, and Todd Stottlemyre, the least noticed starting pitcher in a big game, will do the pitching.
Yeah, he's also in this game, and here's the batting order for the Red Sox. Jody Reed at second base, Carlos Quintana at first, Wade Boggs, the third baseman, hitting third, Ellis Burks, the center fielder, Mike Greenwell in left, Dwight Evans, the designated hitter, Tom Brunansky is in right field, Tony Pena behind the plate, and Luis Rivera, the shortstop. And a look at Todd Stottlemyre, 13-16, making his 33rd start of the year.
Yeah, Mel Stottlemyre, the pitching coach of the New York Mets, has to be awfully proud today. Only man to have 2 sons pitching in the big leagues. Todd Mel Jr. is with Kansas City. Live arm, he will give you a pitch to hit early in the count. He's not a nibbler. And the key to Stottlemyre is to get that first pitch in there. Then he's got a pretty good breaking ball. He can get ahead of these Red Sox hitters and polish them off.
Number 3,
Jody Reed leading off for Boston. Reed, perhaps not a big guy, has gotten a bit fatigued as of late. His batting average is .290, and that's the lowest it has been since mid-June. He was over .300 for a while. Nonetheless, a big threat and a catalyst on this club. Infield is playing straight away, and the outfield slightly around to the left on Reed. First pitch from Stottlemyre, hit deep to left field, and playing it off the wall is George Bell, and Reed will go into second with his 44th double of the year. That missed a home run by about 6 feet, that's all.
Unlike their approach against Dave Stieb, you see what the Red Sox are going to do early in the count. Pitch number 1, they're going to attack Todd Stottlemyre. Last night against Dave Stieb was just the opposite. A lot of sliders. They try to take him deep into the count. That gives you an idea how close Jody Reed came to opening this game up for the Red Sox with a home run.
And here's Carlos Quintana, who's hitting .291. He's come back from a shoulder injury. Swings and fouls it sharply into the Red Sox dugout for a strike. The Red Sox with a runner at second base. And Quintana, who likes to go to the opposite field. Ideal man to have up with nobody out and a runner at second.
Yeah, if you wonder why, how managers arrange their lineup, this is why. Quintana's the perfect guy in this situation. And you want to advance the runner.
Ground ball foul down the right field line. Reed with 44 doubles, and Wade Boggs is right behind him at 43.
Now, we've talked about the matchup and the importance of this series, and when you analyze the two ball clubs, to me, there's only 3 Red Sox players that could start for Toronto. Ellis Burks, Tony Pena, and the guy on second base, Jody Reed.
Pitch breaks inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Quintana. On deck is Wade Boggs. Red Sox were not expected to achieve this much, although people around here talk about a possible collapse. They were up by 6.5 games early in September, but they really have overachieved.
Now, they've learned to live with all of that here in New England and the collapse of the Red Sox, and it's really unfair. Yeah, they had a 6.5 game lead, but when you look at these two ball clubs, I don't think Boston should be in the pennant race with them if the Blue Jays played up to their potential. The way they've done it was with good, effective starting pitching, not just Clemens and Boddicker, but Kicker and Bolton and Greg Harris as well.
1 ball and 2 strikes, nobody out. Jody Reed with a leadoff double. Fouls away, and you can see how Quintana likes to go to the opposite field. All he's looking for is a ground ball to the right side.
Yeah, see, and from a pitcher's standpoint, if you're Todd Stottlemyre, this is the toughest kind of hitter, because he's trying to run that fastball in on him. And Quintana's trying to go the other way, and if you're Stottlemyre and you hang a breaking ball, Quintana's got the perfect bat speed to jerk that baby up in the net.
Quintana lays off the breaking ball, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Pitchers would much rather face hitters that are lungers, that are way out in front.
Galen Cisco, the pitching coach, former football player at Ohio State, on the right.
And pitched right here in Fenway Park for the Red Sox.
25-year-old right-hander getting set for the 2-2 delivery, and he went around on it, and Quintana is a strikeout victim, and that'll be out number 1. Take a look at what's remaining for the Boston Red Sox. They got the Blue Jays after today, tomorrow, and then the Chicago White Sox come in for 3 games to make up for the lockout. Meanwhile, after tomorrow's game to conclude the series, the Blue Jays take to the road to play Baltimore, and I think the schedule favors the home team, except that the Red Sox have to face the White Sox, who have the 2nd best record in the league.
Well, there's one other factor in there that the Blue Jays will deal with.
Wade Boggs takes a strike on the outside corner. Boggs has 183 hits. He's trying to get to 200, but it looks to be a futile mission for him. That would time with Wee Willie Keeler, 8 straight years at 200 or more hits. But he's been bothered by the back injury. Swing and a miss, and a good fastball by Stottlemyre.
I mentioned the Blue Jays have something else to deal with. I think it's in their favor playing on the road versus the Red Sox on the road. See how this Fenway Park crowd gets into it for the Red Sox? The Blue Jays at home have a very, very quiet crowd. Their crowd's not as much of a factor at home. As a result, it's not as difficult for them playing on the road.
1 ball and 2 strikes to Wade Boggs. There is no question that Boggs, who missed a few games with a bad back, is really still hurting. You can see it in practice when he tries to make a backhanded play, even though he made a fine defensive play yesterday, and his bat may have lost some quickness as a result.
No question.
Reed led off with a double. Foul out of play. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Boggs. On deck is Ellis Burks.
Actually, as an athlete, when you have an injury like that, and in Wade Boggs' case, it will hurt him more and affect him more when he swings and misses. Fortunately for him, he doesn't do that very often. When you make contact, there's a little resistance there. When you swing and miss, that's when you're really aggravated. 2 balls and 2 strikes now to Boggs.
Here's a guy who's hitting .305, and for him, that's a bad year.
Yeah. Doesn't get to 200 hits and doesn't win a batting title. He's going to go to arbitration and take a cut.
No one takes a cut. Swing and a miss. And Stottlemyre, going with the fastball, challenges Boggs and strikes him out for the second out here in the first inning.
Well, what the Blue Jays have going for him today, Todd Stottlemyre, yeah, he's not going to get all the hype of Roger Clemens, but he's a gutsy young 25-year-old with a live arm that'll come right at you. Not too many guys throw the fastball past Wade Boggs. Pitched a good game against the Red Sox a few weeks ago, got beat 1-0.
2 down to Ellis Burks. Burks has been the best all-round player on this Red Sox team, a team without speed and without real good power. Hitting .299, swings and misses on a good breaking ball.
Very few hitters, when they say guy's a good breaking ball hitter, nobody hits a good, hard breaking ball like Stottlemyre just threw to Burks. They'll hit the hangers and the mediocre ones, but not the good ones.
Fouls back a fastball and a good pitch for Burks to hit, and the count is no balls, 2 strikes with 2 away. Jody Reed led off with a double high off the left field wall. Quintana tried to move him along, struck out, and so did Wade Boggs. Now Stottlemyre is ahead of Burks 0-2. One ball, 2 strikes now to Burks. Mike Greenwell would be next. Burks may be one of those underappreciated guys. No matter what he does, somehow to a lot of people, it's not enough.
Yeah, I played with a player similar to that, George Hendrick. Great player, outstanding outfielder, clutch hitter, but very casual. You know, very relaxed, sort of a smooth, loping stride, and everyone thought George was never hustling. He should play harder. And that's the rap they put on Ellis Burks. I'll tell you what, he is one of my, you know, you follow this game and you follow guys and they strike you and you like him. Ellis Burks is one of my favorite players, and he, I think, is by far Boston's best all-around player.
21 home runs, a career high for him. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Burks. Not even 2-2.
You ask catchers around the league, Bob Boone from Kansas City, how do you go at Ellis Burks? Usually they'll say a hitter, he likes the ball high or he likes it low. Burks with the fastball can really cover both of those zones. You know, you'll get him to chase that low and away slider like all hitters will, but he can handle the fastball up or down.
25-year-old Todd Stottlemyre, Yakima, Washington, his hometown. That's where his dad Mel has made his home. 0-2 against Boston this year, but that can be misleading because his earned run average is 2.81. In fact, the Red Sox are hitting only .207 against Stottlemyre. That's the lowest batting average for the Red Sox against any Toronto hurler. 2 balls and 2 strikes, and time is called, and Myers goes to the mound.
A little confusion on the sign right there, how to go at Ellis Burks, which with Jody Reed on second, we can mention right now one of the important things. Playing in Fenway Park is getting a big lead off second base. You know, that short left field, as a base runner, most other ballparks you don't pay that close attention to it, but here you got to get a couple extra steps off second if you're going to score on a base hit to left.
For the 2-2 pitch, breaking ball, and he strikes him out. So after the leadoff double by Reed, Todd Stottlemyre strikes out the side. No score after 1. Here's the National League race, and with the Pirates winning and the Mets losing, Pittsburgh could clinch a tie today. And of course the Reds could wrap it up. They've already clinched a tie. That's the story in the National League. Right here, Toronto, Boston. We move to the second inning, and George Bell, the left fielder, facing Roger Clemens. Swing, foul tipped into the glove of Tony Pena. Strike 1. Bell had some problems with his eyes. Last time we were in Toronto, had to come out of the game early. But always a formidable batter. Breaking ball misses. And the count is 1-1. Now, what's this on Clemens' shoes?
Wow, well, they removed the curse of the Bambino outside of Fenway Park. They had a witch out there before the game to do that. But you think ball players are a little superstitious? A Ninja Turtle on his right shoelace.
That's the little boy in these major league players. Grounded off the end of the bat foul past the first base coach Mike Squires. Squires coaches first base for the Blue Jays, and John McLaren is over at third. Clemens doesn't talk to the media except on the day he pitches. And
after he pitches.
And not too much before, that's for sure. It'll be Bell, followed by John Olerud and Greg Myers for Toronto here in the second inning. On the corner. Fastball, and that's the third straight strikeout for Roger Clemens. He got Gruber in the grip to end the first and gets Bell here in the second.
Wow, early in this one, Stottlemyre and Clemens getting this baby up there in a hurry. And see, Clemens, not just the power, but the location. Look where Pena's sitting, and look where he catches the ball. He wants it knee-high outside corner. That's where Clemens throws it.
One out. Here's John Olerud, the designated hitter. He takes ball one. Olerud has had a very good first year, swinging the bat well, but since Bell has come back, we haven't seen much of Olerud.
Yeah, he's only had about a little over a dozen at-bats this month because Bell's been the designated hitter.
Swing and a miss, and missed that way behind.
And you could tell in that swing last night's game also his timing wasn't there. But Cito Gaston talked to George Bell, said, how about playing left field? We can get this kid's bat back in the lineup.
Olerud takes up high. Then they're talking that Olerud could possibly be a left fielder and has to prove that he can play the outfield. He has been used exclusively as a DH against right-handed pitchers.
What he's got is nice, watch the quiet approach of John Olerud. Not a lot of excess movement.
Swing and a miss. And Clemens really getting it up there.
Some might say, yeah, not a lot of contact either, but that's a problem experienced hitters have with Roger Clemens. Fastball still in the upper 80s. Hasn't broken that 90 barrier.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Olerud with 1 out. Still 2-2.
You know, and shame on me for even mentioning radar gun readings. We're so conscious of that in these days because there's more to pitching than just the radar gun. But what Clemens brings to the mound and to pitching, he throws pitches with conviction. I dare you to hit it. I don't believe you can hit it. And that means a lot in addition to good speed.
Well, the name of his game is always put the batter on the defensive in some form or another.
See, here's that linebacker mentality. Watch him stare. Every pitch he throws is thrown with that kind of determination.
The Rocket looking for his 21st win of the year. One of 3 pitchers in the league who have won 20 or more. Here's the payoff pitch to Olerud. Takes low, ball 4. And that'll be the second walk issued by Roger Clemens. There had been 6 straight strikeouts in the game before Olerud draws the pass. And with 1 out, 1 on, and Greg Myers, the Blue Jays catcher, coming to the plate.
Well, it's almost like when we were kids watching a Little League game. All walks and strikeouts. Nobody's hitting the ball. Use the same ball for 3 innings.
Infield is shortened up at double play depth. First pitch to Myers. Loses the bat and fouls the pitch back for a strike. Myers has had only 3 extra base hits since the All-Star break. It's been single or no count for Greg.
Well, one thing you want to do is relaxed hands and hold the bat loose, and Greg Myers certainly does that. You'd rather see that happen than the hitter trying to squeeze the sawdust out of it, which is the tendency to do in pressure situations like this.
And also fielders, when they field ground balls, they tend to squeeze it, and that's where you get some of those wild
all
throws.
go through the same thing. Boy, if you could approach this game, physical, mental preparation like it was a big game, but mentally just, it's 10 o'clock in the morning spring training game. Easy to say, tough to do.
Throw to first base, and Olerud gets back. Pena has emerged as a leader, although there was some kind of a a flurry in Baltimore when he had accused the Red Sox, as was reported, of being quitters and threw some chairs around the locker room. But he is a leader and a veteran, and that kind of blew over pretty fast. Ground ball hit to the left side. Rivera goes over to Reed for one. The throw to first base. They got the double play, and that'll retire the side. Good play by Rivera going deep into the hole. And we've completed an inning and a half. No score. Red Sox batting in the second inning against Todd Stottlemyre, who struck out the side after a leadoff double by Jody Reed. And Mike Greenwell will be the leadoff batter. Greenwell, there is Dwight Evans, the on-deck hitter, and now Greenwell stepping in, who's been the Red Sox leader in just about every major category since the All-Star break. Got off to a very slow start this year. Fouls it out of play, strike one.
You notice Greenwell wearing that brace on his left ankle. And Mickey Cobb's trainer for the Kansas City Royals, Mickey's son, came up with this gadget right there and said, I wonder if Greenwell would try it. Not only tried it, they're going to get a lot more athletes to try it. It's like a splint. It's almost like having your ankle taped with a brace, and it now gives him the leverage to drive off that back leg.
1 ball and 1 strike to Greenwell, who's a superb hitter, and even when he was slumping earlier in the year, he would say, look, I'm a 300 hitter lifetime. There had to be something wrong with me, and there was. He had a problem with his leg, an ankle. This pitch is fouled off. 1 ball and 2 strikes. On deck is Dwight Evans and Tom Brunansky to follow here in the second inning. Red Sox have won 9 of 11, by the way, against the Blue Jays this year, and are undefeated at 5-0 here at Fenway Park against Toronto.
Well, you couldn't ask for a better situation with the schedule makers. Last what would have been regular season weekend, and the 2 teams battling it out.
2 balls and 2 strikes the count now to Greenwell.
You saw Greenwell's numbers in the second half since the All-Star break. He's been on a pace of more of a 25 home run, 100 RBI guy, and that's because of that stronger left ankle, because of the brace.
Swing and a miss, and Stottlemyre's getting it up there, and that's his 4th straight strikeout. Right now, for an update, let's go to New York and check in with Pat O'Brien. Patrick?
The Pirates continue to roll at Busch Stadium, Dick. Top of the 7th, Sid Bream, a solo shot to lead off the 7th. The Pirates now lead 5-0, but the number they like is 3. That's their magic number. Let's go back to Dick and Jim.
All right, thank you very much, Pat. And boy, the Pirates are not giving the Mets any kind of a break. The Mets have winning lately, and the Pirates are matching those victories. Here's Dwight Evans, the designated hitter. He came back last week after missing 10 games. He's had really a rough time this year with his back. Takes a fastball for a strike. Evans no longer playing right field, and talking to him last night, doesn't think he'll play right field next year unless he undergoes surgery for the back. And that may be the only way he'll get this thing worked out.
You come into Boston and you hear about Williams and Yastrzemski and, of course, the great Jim Rice. But here's a guy that's sneaking up those all-time totals in the Red Sox record book, kind of putting some Hall of Fame type numbers together.
He's had a long and illustrious career, and
there's a look at the guys. That's just with one team their entire career. You see Yastrzemski at the top of the list, but Evans not too far behind.
Look at the company he's keeping, huh?
Hall of Fame roll call.
1 out. 0-1 the count to Dwight Evans in tight. Evans likes to play in the daytime. In fact, he is hitting 70 points higher in the daytime than he does at night. Most of his home runs have come in the afternoon as well.
That's unusual. Must be because he's an older player, elder statesman.
1-1 pitch, fouled off the end of the bat. And the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes.
I say unusual because if you talk to most of today's players, and they play a lot more night baseball. Years ago, you played a midweek afternoon game, a Sunday doubleheader, but most guys now see the ball better at night. They would rather play at night, most hitters.
They play him to pull. Check swing, foul back. Evans underwent a myelogram, and that was to check, really to see if there was any problem with the vertebrae in the back, and that sent him, you know, to the bed. He was dizzy. It affected his stability. His you know, he could not do anything for a long while. Couldn't come to the ballpark. And he said he'll never go through anything like that again.
That kind of is reflected in his swing, because when you have a bad back, I mentioned about Wade Boggs' back situation. Boggs has a much shorter, compact swing than Evans, but once he starts that bat, Evans, it's hard for him to hold up, and you'll see him get caught out in front a great deal, out in front of the breaking pitches. Isn't able to stay back.
Check swing on the pitch low. They appealed to first base umpire Dave Phillips, and Evans did check his swing, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Example of it really on that pitch. He did check in time, but that's the most difficult thing to do with a back injury, is once you start that swing, try to stop it.
Todd Stottlemyre, who has struck out 4 straight batters, delivers 2-2, and it's lifted foul. Again, hit off the end of the bat, so Evans hangs in there.
Seen a very impressive Todd Stottlemyre early in this game. One of the reasons, you know, and if you pitch against a guy like Clemens and you're the other pitcher, you try to get yourself in a frame of mind. Nobody expects me to win. You're much more relaxed when you go out there.
Slider misses outside. One thing that the Blue Jays told us about Stottlemyre, and he wanted that pitch, is that he's a lot less hyper than he has been in previous years.
Galen Cisco, the current Blue Jays pitching coach, there's Galen right there. That was Todd's minor league pitching coach. I think he's had a very positive effect on that part of his game, not letting those little errors and things distract him.
3 balls, 2 strikes, ball 4. Myers wanted to appeal to first base, but Evans becomes the second base runner for the Red Sox, and the first walk given up by Stottlemyre. Well, here's Tom Bernansky. Last night might have made a play you won't see in the box score that might have helped the Red Sox win this game early on.
You know, Freddie McGriff lines this to right field. Watch this catch. There are 2 on and 1 out. If that ball gets by him, it's 2-0 Blue Jays. McGriff's on third. Such an exciting game last night with so many emotional highs and lows. That catch never made the paper. For me, that's the biggest play in the ball game. And Joe Morgan said the same thing. He doesn't catch that ball, Steve probably wins the game.
Might have had an inside the park home run too. So here's Bernansky, who hit his first home run since September 3rd. A long drought for Bruno. Evans with the lead. The first pitch in there for a strike. Bernansky, acquired from the St. Louis Cardinals in exchange for reliever Lee Smith, has really not delivered the long ball that they expected of him this year. Has only 11 home runs. Check swing. Back to the mound. Stottlemyre looks to second. His only play now is to first. Bernansky's retired, and Evans moves into scoring position.
Number 6.
Yeah, Bernansky's numbers have been a bit of a disappointment, but isn't it amazing? You follow the team batting average, individual numbers, all of those things all season long, but when it comes down to this, just 1 hit, 1 catch can make people forget all about that miserable season. How about Jeff Stone?
Jeff Stone, brought up from the Red Sox AAA Farm Club as a pinch runner, basically. Stayed in the game after running for Evans last night and delivered the winning hit in the 9th inning. Here's Tony Pena, the Red Sox catcher. Has emerged as a very positive influence for the Red Sox pitchers this season. Fouls it off for a strike.
Talk about that base hit by Jeff Stone. I mean, what a country. Baseball's the American game, right? Here's Jeff Stone, scouted down in Missouri, no shoes. They timed him barefoot. The Philadelphia Phillies, he'd hardly seen Fenway Park. Hadn't been to bat in the major leagues this year, and all of a sudden he's making every newspaper, talk show. He's a hero. And it's nice to see an innocent, young, popular guy like Jeff Stone do something like he did last night.
29 years old, and that may be his biggest thrill.
It is.
2 down. Evans with the lead at second. Pitch fouled out of play, and Stottlemyre is ahead of Pena, 2 strikes. Let's go back to the Baltimore incident in which Pena, really threw a tantrum and threw chairs around. And of course, the Red Sox have been famous for things like that in the clubhouse. But I think they respected what Pena was trying to do, coming from the National League as he did, not being part of this club in the last few years.
Yeah, the only thing with that tantrum in Baltimore that I think the players did not respond favorably to was the timing of it. If it had happened right after the game, but it was about 25 minutes later, and it seemed a little calculated, and the timing and maybe the choice of words was not fitting for the occasion.
Red Sox have had runners in scoring position in each of the first 2 innings. Stottlemyre trying to work out of this one. And Pena strikes out. So 3 strikeouts in the first, 2 in the second, 5 in the game for Stottlemyre. No score after 2 at Fenway. Manny Lee leading off in the 3rd inning of a scoreless game takes a fastball for a strike. Lee is a switch hitter. But he has really struggled since the All-Star break. Hitting under 200, but lifts a line drive down the left field line for a base hit. Greenwell retrieves. Lee makes the turn and will hold it first with a single. And that's the first base hit of the game for the Blue Jays. And right now, let's send you to New York and Pat O'Brien. Pat?
Dick, thank you. Cincinnati is closer to a celebration thanks to Hal Morris. With an RBI double in the 3rd, Cincinnati strikes first against San Diego. It's 1-0. If they win today, they are the NL West champs. Let's go back to a couple of champs in my book. Dick and Jim.
Pat, thank you. Each side with a base hit, and that'll bring up the number 9 hitter, Junior Felix, who was anything but a number 9 hitter last night when he powered a 2-run homer into the Toronto bullpen in the 9th to give Toronto a lead that they eventually squandered.
Boy, what an example, that home. What a bizarre game. It's one of those games, it's like telling somebody a funny story and they don't laugh and you say, well, you had to be there. I mean, you really had to be at last night's game to appreciate the emotional highs and lows for both teams.
Lee with the lead and showing a bunt, taking a fastball for a strike. The Red Sox expecting a sacrifice. Boggs from 3rd and Quintana from 1st, charging on the play.
Yeah, they know Cito Gaston, as you look at John McLaren flash the sign, Cito Gaston knows any chance to get a run up on Roger Clemens is going to be a plus, especially the way Stottlemyre's pitching.
There goes the runner. The pitch swung on and the hit and run was on, and it's fouled out of play. Of course, bunting has not been one of the things the Blue Jays have been successful at. They have really had problems in moving runners along this season. That's been one of the factors in the fact they haven't lived up to expectations.
That's where statistics can be very, very misleading. The Blue Jays with a lot of home runs, they actually lead the American League in fielding percentage. But I think most people that watch them on a regular basis know that they don't live up to that percentage when you watch them every day.
Clemens wanted it. It missed outside. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Well, here's a guy, Junior Felix, who maybe didn't have the kind of confidence the rest of his teammates did when he set a planned wedding date for September the 20th, right smack in the middle of the World Series. Throw to first, and Lee is back. Blue Jays with switch hitters in the number 1 and 2 and 8 and 9 spots in the batting order today. Fastball just misses outside. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Look at Manny Lee on first base. That's another example of what a weird series this is going to be. I mean, Manny Lee is a much better hitter from the right side of the plate. Not a very good hitter left-handed at all, and he gets the hit off Roger Clemens.
Lee has 3 stolen bases in 4 attempts this year. And there goes Lee, gets a good jump on a fly ball, hit to left field. Going back is Greenwell on the warning track, makes the catch, hits the wall. And almost at second base was Manny Lee, and he comes back, but Greenwell is shaken up. He went hard into the scoreboard in left field. And Charlie Moss, the Red Sox trainer, and Joe Morgan are hustling out there. Greenwell took a blow.
Yeah, the first thing you think about when Mike Greenwell hits the wall is that left ankle. Yeah, he just drifted back, had no concern about where the wall was. He's got the ball measured. He knows he's on the warning track. He's got to make a very irregular turn right there. Now, oh, it looks like the right knee. He stung that metal scoreboard with the right knee. Makes the catch. You can see him wince in pain as soon as he makes the catch. Watch the right knee, lower part of your picture, and the shoulder. And what you hope for right there, there's no twisting action involved.
See the padding on the left. He just misses the padding. It was, you're right, the hard part of that metal scoreboard in the wall. There is a spot where it is not padded, and that's where he hit. And they're working on that right knee.
Yeah, what you hope for there is you didn't see any twisting. It's not like you stuck your foot in the grass and twisted the knee. It's just probably bruised and sore. And see Charlie Moss right there feeling for those sensitive places. Joe Morgan again looking on. Well, they've had to deal with injuries mainly around their star pitcher. Now a guy who's been a big factor for him in the last few weeks offensively is in question.
He gets a hand.
And not going to get him out of this ball game. You see the padded wall that Dick was talking about runs out right near the scoreboard, and that's the area that Greenwell strikes with his right knee. Ouch. Hurts just to watch that.
There was a time they didn't pad the wall at all.
It's usually injuries like that all of a sudden baseball gets together and says, oh, maybe we ought to put some padding up there. I guess the most notable one is Texas Ranger manager Bobby Valentine, whose career was really cut short by an injury running into an outfield fence, a cyclone fence that wasn't padded.
Mookie Wilson hit a chopper to Wade Boggs. First time up, comes to the plate. One out. Manny Lee, the runner at first base. Wilson looking down to John McLaren for a possible sign to see if the hit and run may be in order. Fastball on the edge for a strike. Roger Clemens facing Mookie Wilson. Clemens returned to action after being sidelined with tendonitis and a lot of false starts. He was expected to start 3 other occasions but had to bow out. And here he is. Breaking ball up high. 1-1.
Let's see if you're Mookie Wilson right now as he looks down at John McLaren, third base coach. You say, well, I'd like to pull the ball through the hole between first and second because you got a lot of room there, but not easy to do against Clemens. Clemens working him outside, so his best shot probably going to be to try to shoot one toward left at the Green Monster.
Boggs playing even with the bag, third. 1-1 misses. 2 balls in the strike.
You see the Red Sox pretty much straight away. They're not very creative in the field. You won't see a lot of overshifting, and they play the game when they're at bat the same way. Not a lot of stolen bases, hit and run. Just kind of like the area we're in. Pretty basic and traditional.
Is it ever? You mentioned The Curse of the Bambino, book written by Dan Shaughnessy, a Boston columnist. And they always remember the near misses and the collapses that this franchise has experienced. Wilson fouls it off his foot, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. On deck is Tony Fernandez for the Blue Jays. If you've just joined us, we have no score here at Fenway Park. Dick Stockton and Jim Kaat. Second game of the 3-game series, and the big story, Roger Clemens coming back into action. Has thrown already 49 pitches as the Red Sox with a 1-game lead and 5 remaining in the American League East chase. Manny Lee led off with a single.
It is a high pitch count into the 3rd inning, but just going out to the mound and the importance of this game with Clemens being there, they needed a tractor to haul him off that mound, get him out of this game if it stays this close.
Slap fair down the left field line. Greenwell in the corner. Manny Lee on his way to third. The throw to second base and diving in with a double is Mookie Wilson. And the Mook, who was a big spark for the Blue Jays when they acquired him from the Mets last year, given the Blue Jays a big opportunity with runners at second and third and only one out here in the third inning.
This is just a basic, take what Roger Clemens will allow me to take. Pitch on the outside corner. You can't pull that ball. Almost by design, you saw Wilson looking at the ball as if he were going to chop it the other way. He does that and gets rewarded with a double.
Tony Pena out to the mound to talk to Roger Clemens. What they'll do now with Fernandez, runners at second and third. Kelly Gruber is on deck for the Blue Jays.
And when you get guys like Manny Lee and Mookie Wilson on base, that's when these Blue Jays start to do their damage, because all of a sudden you're going to look at a solid hitter in Fernandez, and then Gruber, McGriff, and Bell with men on base.
All Fernandez may be looking at here is just to make some sort of contact, because a ground ball would get a run home.
Red Sox playing their infield back early in the game.
Fernandez walked his first time up. And a line drive right at Rivera for out number 2. And that's probably the last thing that Fernandez and the Blue Jays wanted in this situation.
Now Wilson chops a ball down the third baseline. That goes in for a double. Fernandez hits a rocket, but right at Rivera for an out. Tony Fernandez doesn't feel that way, but Roger Clemens will say, well, they're evening out.
So with two out and runners at second and third, the danger is Kelly Gruber at the plate. He struck out his first time up on a fastball up. Breaks outside, ball 1. Gruber having a red hot September, hitting .375. Breaking ball. Appealing again to Dave Phillips, the first base umpire, but it's a ball, 2-0 the count.
Yeah, he's pitching tentatively to Gruber, and Clemens does not want to lose him and have to face McGriff with the bases loaded. So Gruber's going to get a fastball to hack at right here.
Fastball in on the fist. It's bounced to Rivera at shortstop. The throw to first, high and in time. Quintana gets down in time for the out, just by an eyelash, and the Blue Jays strand 2 runners in scoring position.
Now Rivera's had a little problem with his throwing on what appeared to be routine, but hang on to that ball, squeeze it a little bit, and that's what happens. Quintana just gets the foot down.
Still no score after 2.5, and we'll return to Fenway Park after this word from your local station. Scoreless game at Fenway Park as we move to the bottom of the third inning. Luis Rivera, the number 9 hitter in the Red Sox lineup, facing Todd Stottlemyre, who has struck out 5 batters already. That's a curveball in for a strike to Rivera, who oddly enough is hitting right-handers a lot better than he's hitting left-handers.
I think we're seeing a trend in that. I think the concentration is a big part of it.
Breaking ball in for strike 2.
Boy, oh boy, Todd, we told you he was a challenging type pitcher. All 9 Boston hitters, Stottlemyre has gone strike 1 on every one of them. He'll get ahead of hitters.
In tight. How do you answer the fact that Rivera has hit 80 points higher against right-handers, when normally he should have better success against southpaws?
You mentioned the concentration factor. One thing as a hitter, keep the front shoulder in, keep the front shoulder in, drive toward the pitcher. That's what you're constantly telling yourself.
Breaking ball in for call strike 3. Nasty one by Stottlemyre, and that is his 6th strikeout already.
Well, for years they've had descriptions of a curveball. It's been Uncle Charlie, and then there's Lord Charles, and that's the Bly-Levens and the guys that have that big over-the-top hook, and Stottlemyre sticks it right on the corner there to Rivera. Getting back to your point, Dick, I think right-hander against right-hander, it makes you try to keep that shoulder in a little bit longer, and as a result, maybe you hit better against righties than lefties.
Here's Jody Reed, who has the only Red Sox hit, a leadoff double in the first inning. Looks at a breaking ball outside, 1-0. Reed doubled and very nearly had himself a home run. That was about 6 feet or so from the top of the wall. And then Stottlemyre struck out the side. 2-0 the count to Reed, one of the few batters he's fallen behind.
And right now the starter's in control, and now last night was reversed. You'd have thought with Hinkie on the mound, 1-run lead, Blue Jays was win. Didn't happen. But if it gets to the bullpens, Toronto has an advantage.
2-0 pitch misses, 3 balls and no strikes. And of course, you really don't know who's going to come out of the Red Sox bullpen. That has really been sort of a mix and match situation for Joe Morgan, hasn't it?
You've heard of Mutt and Jeff. Out in the bullpen, it's Morgan and Jeff. Last night with Jeff Gray and Jeff Reardon. What a bizarre situation. Jeff Gray, who had pitched the 8th inning, goes out with a 1-run lead with Jeff Reardon, one of the all-time saves leaders, up and throwing in the bullpen. Morgan never brought him in, and Reardon ends up with a win.
Ball 4. And Reed is aboard with 1 out in the 3rd inning. That's the second walk given up by Todd Stottlemyre.
18, Carlos Quintana.
The New York Mets were beaten by the Chicago Cubs, who really were a thorn in the Mets side last week in a come-from-behind 4-3 win. They did it today 3-2, and so the magic number now is 2. And the Pirates, if they go on and win their game, will clinch a tie for the National League East crown. Here's Carlos Quintana, who was a strikeout victim his first time up.
Good hit and run situation. Stottlemyre throws strikes early. Quintana hits the ball to right field. And with Clemens out there the way these guys are pitching, runs are going to be a little precious.
Red Sox obviously not a team that runs a lot. They're last in the American League in stolen bases. They really play station-to-station baseball. Let's see if they change up here. And a chopper to third, foul ball, fielded by Kelly Gruber. And the count is strike 1.
Yeah, Joe Morgan, as we mentioned, the defensive alignment is not creative when the Red Sox are at bat. And you would think with a team that does not hit many home runs, granted they hit 2 last night, Wade Boggs, one of them, which is a rarity. Boggs doesn't hit a lot of homers. You would think that they would use the hit and run a lot more and maybe try to steal. But I think this ballpark influences managers and players not to do that, to just sit back and wail away at the monster.
Of course, there was a time when the Red Sox had the big mighty sluggers in the mid and late 70s when you wouldn't play hit and run, but this kind of makeup of this club, you might have tried. Quick throw to first, and diving back is Jody Reed. Like the leading base stealer on the Red Sox is Ellis Burks with 9, and he's been thrown out more times than he has been successful.
You see Reed, he's going to look at the footing out there. That's important to a base runner. He wants to get some traction. And that dirt gets awfully loose there when you get a few base runners.
Outfield playing Quintana as they should. Around to the right, gap in center and left center. Fastball misses, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike to Quintana. Wade Boggs is on deck for the Red Sox. Red Sox were sailing along. Stretched the lead, as we told you, to 6.5 games. Coming into early September, they ran off a winning streak of 10 games, and when Roger Clemens came down with the tendonitis, they're also playing a little beach ball.
Yeah, they retrieved one of my fastballs again. That baby was floating around the stands last night. Fenway Park's the last place you'd think they would be bouncing beach balls around.
No. No score. Dick Stockton and Jim Kaat. We're in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Blue Jays have 2 hits and the Red Sox 1. Carlos Quintana, the batter. Swing and a miss on a breaking pitch, 1-2. Quintana won the first base derby and has been over 300 all year. Really one of the big surprises for the Red Sox, and not to be minimized in whatever they've achieved here.
Yeah, he's been especially effective in this role. I was surprised he didn't hit and run there, and Quintana looked down at rack slider like maybe Jody Reed missed a sign.
Swings and grounds it to Gruber. Play is to first in time for out number 2, and right now let's check in with Pat O'Brien for an update. Pat, what do you have?
Dick, you gave the score. Here's the final out at Shea. The Mets have lost against the Chicago Cubs Now, the Pirates continue to roll in St. Louis. If Pittsburgh wins, their magic number could be 1 by the end of the day, and you can hear the moans in the Big Apple. Back to Boston.
All right, Pat, thank you very much. And so the fans disappointed again because every year they think the Mets have the best team and they'll go on and win it, and not to be this season. 2 out, and Reed the runner at second base. Here's Wade Boggs, who struck out his first time up. Fastball on the outside corner, strike 1 to Wade.
Got that same situation, Dick, that we referred to back in the first inning. Wade Boggs hits the ball to left field, very shallow, so Jody Reed has got to cheat, get a little farther off second base, even with George Bell's throwing arm, which is not the strongest.
This pitch misses outside. Last night, Wade Boggs hit a home run, and it was his first since June the 28th. And Bernansky, of course, with his first home run since the early of this month, September the 3rd. No score. Clemens and Stottlemyre, both pitchers, doing an outstanding job thus far. Slap foul out of play. Coming into this game, George Brett had a 4-point lead over Ricky Henderson. Henderson got a couple of hits last night. Palmeiro is now third. Boggs at 305. And Brett, did he ever come on in the latter part of this season?
Guy that everyone said early in the year was washed up. He showed him. He's given up on those old veterans.
1 ball, 2 strikes. 2 out and a comebacker, and Stottlemyre will get out of this one. And after 3 innings, Blue Jays and the Red Sox, no score. No score after 3, and of course there are a lot of candidates for the Cy Young Award, and Roger Clemens not only candidate for Cy Young but maybe MVP as well. But with Welsh having an amazing year, do you think there's any contest there?
Well, I think there is. I think to really judge Cy Young candidates, Clemens, Eckersley, Stewart, they're all valid candidates. I wonder if they shouldn't go to a point system like they do for the relief pitchers. 3 for a win, -2 for a loss, 2 for a quality start, 1 for shutout, 1 for a complete game. If they did that, Stewart and Welch would be tied at 122 points. Clemens would be 5 points behind.
You've already instituted this thing, haven't you? Whether anyone likes it or not, and that's not a bad idea.
It's such a hard thing to judge. I mean, Dave Welch has had a remarkable year.
Fred McGriff leading off for the Blue Jays in the 4th inning takes ball 1. He struck out his first trip to the plate. The Blue Jays, no runs, 2 hits, and no errors. The Red Sox, no runs, a hit, and no errors. Roger Clemens has given up 2 hits, fouled off the fists back. 1 ball, 1 strike.
We said they hit more home runs, along with Cecil Fielder and a couple guys from the Oakland A's, but Toronto beat you with that long ball.
McGriff hit 2 home runs off of Clemens on June the 28th. Not too many people can attest to that.
Yeah, Roger's been going with a lot of fastballs, but against McGriff, I think you'll see more of the split fingers.
McGriff, Bell, and Olerud to face Clemens here in the 4th, giving him a steady diet of fastballs, and the count is 2-1.
Fred McGriff has made a nice subtle change thanks to hitting coach Gene Tennis. There's a guy with a lot of postseason play experience. Watch that back knee, that left knee.
Count is 2 balls and 2 strikes, and a let-up pitch is hit in the air to left center field. Greenwell is moving over, and Mike has it for out number 1 here in the 4th. A big game in the divisional race here at Fenway Park in Boston. After the Red Sox won last night, Roger Clemens comes back to pitch, and through 3 innings has allowed 2 hits. He has thrown 54 pitches. Stottlemyre has 6 strikeouts. Now, Stottlemyre has averaged only 3 strikeouts a game, has already doubled that, so he's having a fine game himself.
Yeah, and he likes the position he's in because all the attention is drawn toward Clemens, and Todd just keeps going out there throwing it over, and if this ball game gets into the 6th or 7th, the Blue Jays have the edge.
George Bell looks at ball 1. There's Todd, who has been in a lot of decisions this year. When you're looking at 13 and 16, it seems like every time he pitches, he's going to get a W or an L. Not too many no decisions. 1-1 the count to George Bell. He was a strikeout victim in the 2nd.
mentioned that subtle change that Fred McGriff had made with Gene Tennis. So important for hitters, especially power hitters, to keep their weight back, but to have a little flex in their knees. And that's where Tennis had a chance to work with McGriff. And ever since that, his production has gone up, striding into the ball a little better.
Two balls and a strike now to George Bell. Toronto Blue Jays have been one of the stronger clubs. In fact, they have finished over 500 for 8 straight years. No other club has done that in the big leagues. The New York Mets, including this season, will have done it 7 consecutive years, but that's really a mark of consistency, although they haven't gone as far as the fans would have liked. Line drive, stroke to left center field for a hit. Burke's quickly over. Bell is going to try to leg it into second base. The throw is off the mark, and George is in with a double. Good base running by George Bell.
First of all, a good piece of hitting. Look where Pena is sitting, and the ball is out there pretty good, but Bell gets those arms extended, handles that low pitch out away from. Now look at those eyes of George Bell. He's looking at Ellis Burks, and as soon as he sees any kind of hesitation, he sees, I can make it to second base. Never slowed down a stride. That's how you turn singles into doubles.
So the Blue Jays have their second double of the game, their third hit, and with 1 out, John Olerud, the batter. He walked his first time up. Ball, strike 1. For the Blue Jays, the last 2 innings have had runners in scoring position. The Red Sox have had a man to second 2 of the first 3 innings, but no score here in the top of the 4th inning. Misses inside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
You mentioned the big series this weekend and the Blue Jays' success the last 5 years. This is the 4th time really in the last 6 that they've had to contend with a season-ending series to determine the league championship, the American League East.
Last year, of course, they went against the Orioles and ended up winning by 2 games there. Lost to the Red Sox, the eventual winners, in '88. And then, of course, the collapse against the Tigers in '87.
And they beat the Yankees in '85 when Doyle Alexander was there to win the East. They have had chances to win more often than most teams.
Swing and a miss.
And that brings up a point that this time of the year, everybody seems to get a kick out of saying this team chokes and that team is a spoiler. I'll tell you what, I'd rather be on a team like this and have a chance to win and have people say, ah, you guys choked, instead of coming in and saying, well, we had a lousy year, but we're going to be spoilers. What satisfaction is that?
Foul back. And of course, the word choke is abhorrent to a lot of people in professional sports. And usually when you find a team not producing, as the Red Sox recently had, it's more that they're trying too hard to win.
People or teams that accuse other teams of choking ought to hope they get in a position to do that, to lose a big game.
Runner at second base is George Bell, and Clemens steps off the mound, and maybe a problem with the signs with a runner at second base as Pena goes to the mound.
Well, you got a veteran like George Bell. Now with a young hitter like John Olerud, I wouldn't think this would be the case, but one possibility is always the guy on second can see the catcher's signs and he will signal location. If he sees Pena sitting outside, he'll move his hand so a guy like Olerud could look for the ball outside. I think really here it's just a sequence of signs. Pena doesn't want to get crossed up.
2 balls and 2 strikes to count. On deck is Greg Myers. Just misses outside. Clemens wanted that pitch, and the crowd, as you would expect, did as well. Full count now to John Olerud. Roger Clemens' pitch count. He'll be delivering number 70 coming up here. Early in the top of the 4th inning. Here's the 3-2 pitch. Swung on and foul tip at the plate.
Well, it's too bad from the Blue Jays standpoint. John Olerud, such a good young hitter and a great hitting prospect, but because of Bell's inability to play left field, he became the DH, and John Olerud missed a lot of at-bats in September, and he's just not swinging the same way he was earlier.
Strikes out on a fastball, and that's number 4 for Roger Clemens.
Now you see him almost feeling for that ball, not really swinging through it, but almost feeling for it. And they talk about pitching inside. I'll tell you, Roger Clemens is doing a great job here in Fenway Park of pitching these left-handers outside.
He's moving the ball around effectively, and is that a surprise for you, considering that he has been off as long as he has been?
Well, when you look at great athletes like Clemens, I don't think anything surprises you, but it is an indication that the pain in the arm is not bothering him. If it was, he would not have this kind of control.
Here's Greg Myers, who bounced into a double play his first time up. Takes ball 1.
You know, it may bother him 2 days from now. That shoulder may puff up and get sore, or get smoking is the term that he used. But hey, how many times do you get to do this? Take your team to the Fall Classic.
Always like that name.
Yeah.
That in the
They're putting it on
Midsummer
the
Classic.
tickets. Yeah.
Bluff to second, nobody near the bag, and it's an opportunity, as you pointed out earlier, for George Bell to take a big lead. Now Rivera starts to cheat over towards second, but basically Rivera is playing into the hole because that's where Myers hits, and Bell can even get a bigger lead than he has right now.
Which is important as we sit ballpark like this.
Grounded to Quintana. Has problems finding the handle, gets it over to Clemens in time, and look at Roger Clemens hustle. He did the same thing in Toronto and gets a standing ovation. In Toronto, he dove for the bag. He doesn't limit what he does, just the pitching. Fine play by Clemens and a good recovery by Quintana, and it's still no score. Well, the National League Championship Series begins Thursday. Game 1 at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Friday night, Game 2 will be at 3 o'clock Eastern. And the American League gets underway Saturday. It'll either be here or Toronto. Game 1, 8 o'clock Eastern. Best of 7 in the League Championship Series. Ellis Burks leads off for the Red Sox in the 4th inning, and he takes ball 1 from Todd Stottlemyre. Strikeout victim his first time. Fastball hit in the air to center field. Mookie Wilson has plenty of room, and there's one away. One out. Mike Greenwell comes to the plate. He struck out his first time up and was shaken up, making a play in left field.
Yeah, during the season, you'd say, wow, it's just a pretty good catch, nothing sensational. But when you get in a series like this, everything is so magnified. Even despite that bumping into the wall, he's able to stay in the lineup.
That was in the 3rd inning. Up the middle and through into center field. A base hit for Greenwell. And the Red Sox have their second hit of the game with 1 out. In the National League, the Pittsburgh Pirates have blanked the Cardinals 8-0 and have clinched a tie for the division championship, with the Mets losing to the Cubs today. Red Sox coming in with a 1-game lead over the Blue Jays. Scoreless here, and Dwight Evans the batter with 1 out and 1 on. Evans drew a pass his first time up.
The city likes to hit in the daytime, and it seems like these situations have been the ones where Evans has excelled. He has not looked good so far in last night's game and early today.
Breaking ball from Stottlemyre is over for a strike. Stottlemyre has given up 2 hits, has walked 2 and struck out 6. Looking for victory number 14. In on the fist, 1-1 to Evans. On deck is Tom Bernanski. Two hits for the Red Sox, a leadoff double by Reed in the 1st inning. And Greenwell with a base hit up the middle with 1 out here in the 4th inning. Swing and a miss on that slider, well out of the strike zone, and the count now 1-2.
And that's one of the reasons Evans has not swung the bat well in this. Look how far out in front he is. I mean, as many years as he's played in Fenway Park, yes, he likes the convenience of the monster, but boy, he also has the ability to take that pitch and go the other way. There's a lot of room out there in right field.
Two balls and 2 strikes to Evans. Line drive type of hitter, and many of his line drives hit in this ballpark have risen enough to hit the wall or go into the net. 2-2 with 1 out. There goes Greenwell. Line drive, gloved by Gruber, and it'll be an easy double play to first to retire the side as Greenwell running on the pitch, and Evans lines into an inning double play. No runs ahead, nobody left, and we've completed 4 at Fenway Park. Still nothing.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Toyota's quality line of cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me. The U.S. Navy, you and the Navy, full speed ahead. And by DuPont, better things for better living.
Well, the Red Sox got a break earlier in this game when Tony Fernandez hit a line drive. It would have been an RBI single, and here the Blue Jays get a break themselves. Evans on the hit and run hits a rocket right at Gruber, and the rest is pretty easy. Double play to end the inning.
And an impressive pitcher's duel going on here at Fenway Park. Only 5 hits in the game. Roger Clemens coming back after missing 4 starts. Todd Stottlemyre locked in a duel. Manny Lee leads off in the 5th for Toronto. Single down the left field line his first time up. Takes ball 1. Lee took over the second base duties after the Blue Jays traded Nelson Liriano to Minnesota in exchange for veteran left-hander John Candelaria. Fastball down the middle, 1-1.
And one of the reasons they had that platoon situation for a long time, because Liriano's a little better left-hand hitter. Manny Lee, as we mentioned, better from the right side, yet he has a base hit against Clemens today from the left side.
Fastball fouled back. 1-2 to Lee. On deck is Junior Felix, the number 9 hitter, and then the top of the order with Mookie Wilson. Look at Fenway Park. And the bleacher fans are out in full force today. Over 32,000, maybe as much as 34 or 35 on hand. Hit sharply to center field. Burks is back, makes the catch for out number 1. Lee got good wood on that one.
Yeah, and that's why when we saw the fans out in the center field bleachers, when you said Evans would prefer hitting in the daytime, that's why it's unusual here. Also because usually it's tough to pick up the ball. And also, if you're out in the outfield, it's getting to that time of the day with the sun out there. I tell you, there's going to be a fly ball or a sinking line drive that could be a factor going into that sun field. Relief pitchers shielding themselves from the sun out in the right field area.
For Lou Piniella in the '78 playoff against the Yankees, the ball he couldn't see made a stab and saved perhaps the game in the field for the Yankees. Drag bunt by Felix. Quintana makes the tag in time. Junior Felix trying to get on with a drag bunt, and Quintana was alert and makes the play. 2 down.
Well, you see, another thing that Clemens brings to the Red Sox, Felix executes the bunt rather well here, just a little too close to the line. I'm surprised he didn't at least try to slide out of the way of the tag. He gives Quintana a pretty easy play. He just runs straight for the bag, but Clemens is right there to congratulate Quintana. I mean, he stays into the game even when he's not pitching the baseball. Clemens can't get there fast enough, and the only thing Felix does not do, a little hook slide right there, might have given him at least a chance to be safe.
So with 2 down, Mookie Wilson. Broken bat ground ball, slowly hit to Reed. A 1-2-3 inning for Roger Clemens. He only threw 6 pitches that inning. That's a break for him. No score after 4 1/2. Fenway Park here with the lights turned on. No score. Bottom of the 5th inning. And a line drive foul. Bronowski over the roof. And that was a home run cut. 0-0 to score. Red Sox have 2 hits. The Blue Jays have 3. Brunansky, Pena, and Rivera, the bottom third of the Boston batting order, facing Todd Stottlemyre here in the 5th inning.
Boy, you continue to see Stottlemyre get ahead, which is what he has to do to win, and the Red Sox know that, and they continue to be aggressive early in the count. So it's a real good matchup, hitter and pitcher.
Tight, 1 ball and 1 strike. Of course, Brunansky was acquired for Lee Smith. And then Reardon had the back surgery, and the Red Sox all of a sudden were left without a closer. Here's the 1-1 pitch. It's hit deep to left field. Way back, gone. Home run on the screen. For Tom Brunansky, and his second in as many games, and the Red Sox take a 1-0 lead.
Now, this time of the year, you don't have to hit many to erase those early season failures. Right on the fastball. Brunansky loves the ball below the belt, and that's where that one is, about belt high, and he gets the bat head out.
That's the Tom Brunansky they wanted here when they got him from the Cardinals. They wanted him to come out. Ten of his 12 home runs this year have been hit at Fenway Park. Here is Tony Pena. Ground ball to the right side. Diving stop by Manny Lee. And he makes the play for out number 1. And that was sharply hit by Pena.
Now we've seen some erratic defense so far in these 2 ball games, but there's Manny Lee, who might be the second best shortstop in the American League. If you listen to Cito Gaston, he thinks Fernandez is the best, and Manny Lee really is a better shortstop, and he makes a great play at second base right there.
1 out. Crowd still buzzing over Brunansky's home run high into the screen. Here's Luis Rivera. He takes down low, ball 1. Rivera took a called 3rd strike his first time up. Red Sox now leading 1-0. The hits are all even, 3 apiece. Broken bat, comebacker to Stottlemyre. And Rivera's retired for the 2nd out. And right now, let's send you back to New York and an update from Pat O'Brien. Pat?
All right, Dick, let's take you to Riverfront. 1-1, top of the 6th, bases loaded. A Barron Jackson single scores 1. But watch this play. Jack Clark thrown out at the plate. The Padres now lead 2-1 in the 6th. Back to Dick.
All right, Pat. Watching that Reds game with the Padres. Cincinnati can wrap it up with a win today. Red Sox leading 1-0, and with 2 out, here's Jody Reed. Doubled and walked. Has been on base twice this afternoon.
I think another indication the maturity of Todd Stottlemyre. Gives up a home run right back in the strike zone. Got the next 2 guys out.
Ball strike 1. Stottlemyre, who, along with Dave Steve, have pitched far and away the most innings of any Blue Jay pitcher this year.
See, a couple years ago, I think Stottlemyre, they would have looked out and said, oh, he gave up a home run. He's going to start walking people, and the whole game would go up in smoke. But made a lot of improvements since last year.
Curveball. 1 ball and 1 strike. Unusual that Fenway Park has been the scene of only 100 home runs. One of the 5 fewest parks for home runs this year in the major leagues.
Now, this is a deceptive ballpark when you talk home runs. See, the thing that hurts you in this ballpark is the fly ball off the wall. That's why the Red Sox have so many doubles with Boggs and Reed. It's not really the home runs that do the damage here. Got a couple men on, hit a little pop fly off that wall.
Guys like Jim Rice, who would hit line shots that would be home runs in most any other ballpark, would be doubles or even sometimes singles here. And it's called third third strike. Greg Myers set up outside, and that's where the pitch was. Side is retired, but the Red Sox take a 1-0 lead. Roger Clemens and the Red Sox with a 1-0 lead on Tom Brunansky's home run. And of course, right behind home plate, behind the screen, you'll see a bunch of guys taking notes. Those are the scouts.
Yeah, they're from Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Oakland and postseason play. Of course, the Red Sox got heavily criticized for not sending an advanced scout to check out these Blue Jays in Milwaukee, which is customary. Lou Gorman said, we know enough about them. We've played them enough. But that's what all those clipboards and reports you see right there go into offices of Major League ball clubs. Try to get as much information as you can. Well, what a job he has done with all the hype directed toward Roger Clemens today. Todd Stottlemyre.
Red Sox have some activity in their bullpen. Wes Gardner has begun to throw. Tony Fernandez, switch hitter leading off against Clemens, takes ball one. Fernandez has walked in line to shortstop. There is Gardner. At one time, he was considered to be the closer on this club.
Well, no secret, Joe Morgan, just whatever the hunch is, that's who he's going to get up. There's no real plan or organization to that Boston bullpen.
2 balls and no strikes to Fernandez. Kelly Gruber and Fred McGriff to follow. Blue Jays trailing 1-0. They were down 4-0 last night, moving to the late innings, and came back to tie it up. Eventually held the lead. Ground ball into the hole, and the base hit for Tony Fernandez. So Fernandez extends his personal hitting streak to 9 games. And the leadoff man is aboard here in the 6th.
I'm not a big believer in the radar gun, but I think one indication is when you see the left-hand hitters start to pull Roger Clemens as opposed to hit the ball the other way, and that pitch there we understand is 2 or 3 miles an hour slower than he's been throwing. That's a warning sign for Joe Morgan and Bill Fisher that maybe Clemens has reached his limit.
Kelly Gruber.
He's up near the 100 pitch mark. We're just in the 6th inning.
Here's Kelly Gruber, who is 0 for 2. Pena setting up on the outside part of the plate, and a fly ball hit to right center field. Brunansky, late start, coming over, makes the catch for out number 1, and Fernandez goes back to first. So Gruber, jumping on the first pitch, is retired. 1 out.
Number 19.
There's an indication of that late afternoon sun. Brunansky calling off Burks with the glasses down. Those high flies like that are not so troublesome, but if a guy like McGriff hits one of those screaming liners, that's when Brunansky will have trouble.
And you notice the cork under the eyes for the glare on a day like this. Clemens has allowed 4 hits. 2 of them have been doubles. He has walked 2 and struck out 4. Fred McGriff, the hitter, has struck out and fly to Greenwell in left field. Fastball away, 1-0.
See, prior to the adjustment, they'll try to pitch Fred McGriff on that outside corner, but prior to the adjustment he made where he kind of strides into the ball just a touch more, he couldn't reach that outside pitch. Now he can drive it.
Time is called. What a consistent power man he's become. 34 homers right now, hit 36 last year, but his batting average has gone up some 30 points from a year ago. Pitch in there for a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike to McGriff. George Bell waiting to hit for the Blue Jays. Tony Fernandez on at first base. 1 out, 6th inning. The Red Sox 1, the Blue Jays nothing. Cito Gaston, who's had his problems with umpires this year, has been ejected 6 times this year. Runner goes, and the pitch taken for a strike. To throw to second, safe. And a good jump that time by Fernandez. Pena's throw to the third base side of the bag, and a stolen base for Tony.
And that's exactly what got Fernandez the stolen base. Pena cannot execute it any better. Look at him come out of the shoot drive right towards second base and make a fairly accurate throw. Yes, Rivera had to reach a little, but it was Fernandez's excellent jump that enabled him to steal second base. Not looking in for the hit and run. That's a straight steal.
And Fernandez with his 26th stolen base of the season, and the Blue Jays have the tying run in scoring position. The count, 2 balls and a strike to McGriff. Clemens has had to work several times this afternoon with a runner at second. And finally, problems, I guess, with the signs. And again, it's with a runner at second base.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it'd be that tough. I mean, you go over these signs in the clubhouse before the game. Maybe it's the way they want to pitch McGriff. They have gone away, and you're always fearful a guy with McGriff's power taking the ball out. So maybe Pena's saying, hey, let's come back inside. Let's see what they do.
The infield and the outfield playing McGriff straight away. Fastball and possibly playable for Boggs, and it is, and he makes the catch. Gave him a running fastball that time, and McGriff fouls it out. Boggs makes the play, 2 out.
Yeah, and like pretty routine play, but one thing you do as a fielder, you see him look at the railing, find out where it is, and now he knows he's got plenty of room to drift back in. Always want to know where that dugout or that wall is, and then find the ball.
Well, he's not out of the woods yet, even though he retired the left-handed hitter, George Bell, who last time up lashed a hard double to left center field, 1 for 2 today.
Yeah, granted, Olerud is a left-hand hitter, so percentage-wise, you'd say go after the righty. But I think right now Clemens and Pena got to look at who's in the batter's box and the experience of who's in the on-deck circle. I don't think they'll give him anything to hit.
And again, time called, and Pena, and
he just broke Carlton Fisk's record for trips to the mound.
I'm not so sure, but he's getting close to it.
What do you want it, George?
Of course, Pudge, a star here for many years, has now done such a great job with that young pitching staff in Chicago, and they'll be in here early in the week.
That could be a very tough series for the Red Sox. We mentioned Chicago's got the second best record in the league. That team's still hungry, even though they're eliminated. Ball strike in there, 0-1 to George Bell. On at second base is Tony Fernandez. There are 2 down. Sneaking behind is Jody Reed. Blue Jays have had 5 opportunities with men in scoring position today. Clemens shut out Toronto in Toronto. 1-0. It was a Dwight Evans home run back in August. Breaking ball is away, and the count 1-1 now.
I'll tell you what has really been amazing, and I think it would be so to Bill Fisher, the pitching coach, is the control that Clemens has had today, not having pitched since September 4th and going through the arm injury and still coming out and having this kind of control. It's pretty amazing.
I'm amazed too, and we've used that word, each of us now. I think very few players on the field yesterday thought Clemens was going to pitch today, or if he did, last long. To a man, most of the Red Sox felt that they would be seeing Joe Hesketh out there and not Roger Clemens.
Yeah, I think the general consensus amongst the Red Sox was, yeah, Roger's going to go to the bullpen. He's going to warm up because this is what he wants to do. He wants to make the effort, but I really don't think he's going to pitch. But Clemens kept saying, yeah, you wait and see.
Red Sox pitching coach Bill Fisher. He has to nurse Clemens and all of those other pitchers, some cast-offs, to make a staff that could narrow the magic number to 3 for the win. Fouled out of play. Bell hangs in there with the count 1-2. 2 out, runner at second. 1-0 Red Sox here in the Toronto 6th.
How about that? Clemens got a little creative. First time today, he dropped down and threw Bell a little bit of a sidearm pitch. Most of Clemens' deliveries right straight over the top. Gives you an idea of the respect he has for George Bell.
And a cat-and-mouse game going on. Battle of wits there with Bell taking his time, doing a little Ricky Henderson number to try to get things on his side, and Clemens then stepping off the rubber himself.
Yeah, every catcher and pitcher have a little rhythm and a tempo they get into it. Pena is a very deliberate catcher. It takes him a while to put down the signs, and obviously a very critical situation. Good
pitch by Clemens, but Bell gets a piece of it and stays alive.
See, earlier in the inning, he was down in the mid-80s. Now George Bell is up there. That pitch, 91 miles an hour. You know, in the old days, they used to say, yeah, he can reach back and get a little extra, like Robin Roberts used to do it, pitchers of that vintage.
Swing and a miss. George Bell strikes out. That's the 5th strikeout. And we'll return to Fenway Park after this word from your local station. One to nothing Boston. Bottom of the 6th inning. Todd Stottlemyre trailing, pitching well. One bad pitch. Tom Bernansky's home run to lead off the 5th inning. The only score in the game. Carlos Quintana takes ball 1. Quintana 0 for 2 this afternoon. Fouls it off. 1 ball and 1 strike. On deck is Wade Boggs with Ellis Burks to follow.
Now, we said if it comes down to bullpens, Toronto has the edge. Now, that's Jeff Reardon in your picture. He's the all-time active saves leader. Joe Morgan's been hesitant to go to him because of the back surgery. But Reardon and Tom Hinkie be the factors in this game before it's over.
Line drive, base hit. Quintana, as he likes, goes the opposite way, and the Red Sox have their 4th hit off of Todd Stottlemyre. You mentioned Reardon. He got the victory last night in that 7-6 win. So Quintana on at first base, and Wade Boggs coming to the plate. Red Sox looking for an insurance run in the way Roger Clemens is pitching. And what's at store? It looks like Boston doesn't need that many today.
Yeah, this can be a big inning for both teams. If you're Todd Stottlemyre, you want to hold Boston down because chances are Roger Clemens coming out of the game next inning. You keep it to a 1-run game. We saw what the Blue Jays did last night. If you're Boston, big inning, because if you score a couple, you can get Clemens out of there.
Come on, waiter.
Down the middle for a strike. Boggs 0 for 2, has struck out. Tap back to the mound. And now the Toronto bullpen for the first time today starts in motion. Boggs fouls it out of play, and the count no balls and 2 strikes.
You see Dwayne Ward, the right-hander, Al Leiter, former Yankee hopeful, the left-hander.
Ward came in and pitched last night prior to Hinkie's appearance. Blue Jays infield, the double play depth. 1 and 2 down to Wade Boggs. Time running out on his efforts to reach the 200 hit mark. Done it 7 straight years, and Wee Willie Keeler has the record at 8 years. This is outside and not by much. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Boggs.
Cito Gaston, the Toronto manager, with Al Leiter up, the left-hander. So he's looking down the lineup. Critical stage of the game. Candelaria has not done an excellent job. Left-hander out of the Blue Jay bullpen, or John Cerruti. So Leiter might be the guy he wants to bring in to face Greenwell.
Nobody out. Runner at first. 2-2 pitch. Boggs hangs in there, fouls it off. Won 5 American League batting championships. And one thing that has improved in recent years has been his defense. Slowly, through hard work, he has gotten better.
Yeah, and unnoticed. I mean, last weekend in the Yankee series and in last night's ball game, so many times it's the good fielding plays that keep you from losing. Boggs made a good one last night.
Quintana, the runner at first base. Nobody out. Boggs with that good eye, and the count runs full. 3-2. On deck is Ellis Burks.
See, Toronto with a little more of a over-adjustment, shifting Boggs to left center. Big hole in right center.
There goes Quintana. And on the 3-2 pitch, Red Sox were starting him, and Boggs fouls it back.
See, and the danger when you shift like that, granted, Wade Boggs hits most of the balls to the left center field alley, but 3-2 situation, he's guessing fastball. He's much more apt to get the bat head out and pull a pitch in this situation, so that big hole in right center is a factor.
And with Boggs at the plate, odds could be on your side to start the runner. He goes again, 3-2, and again he fouls it back.
Come on, wait.
The Red Sox starters, along with Seattle and Oakland, are the best group of starting pitchers in the American League. That's hard to imagine because all you think of is Clemens. But they've done a great job as a group, but yet their bullpen has been the most ineffective in the American League, and that's where Toronto has the edge going into these last 4 innings.
Well, their closer didn't get the job done last night, and Quintana was leaning the wrong way almost and has to dive back. And that's one of those strange aspects of baseball that you talked about before the game. The Sox had the power. Blue Jays closer didn't get the job done.
Last night's game, if there's ever a game to make a case for it, you can't figure it out. You got to sit back and enjoy it and watch it. It's last night's game because everything happened just the opposite way of what you thought it would.
Again, Quintana is off 3-2, and once again Boggs fouls it back. Boggs has struck out only 65 times in over 600 at-bats this year, so the chances are great that he's going to get a piece of it somehow.
I'm sure thought going through Todd Stottlemyre's mind right now, it'd be a gutsy pitch, but if he throws him a breaking ball, he's got a good chance to strike out Boggs and end the inning. But of course, if he misses, that's the consequence. That'd be a gutsy pitch.
There goes Quintana, and the pitch again, it's fouled back. So we could have put all this on replay and shown it 4 times. Want to know where Boggs hits the ball? Well, the numbers don't lie.
Sure. Well, that's when you look over the history of Boston hitters, that's why there's been so many left-hand batting champions. Not a lot of home run champions, but batting champions. Left-hand hitters have such an advantage. They get the pitches outside and drive them toward that short left field wall.
Everyone in the park knows that Quintana is going on 3-2, and Boggs has fouled off 4 pitches after the count reached 3-2. Joe Morgan peering in, and Mike Greenwell, who will come up after Burks, the on-deck hitter. There goes Quintana, and the pitch is lined to center field, and a base hit. Quintana will hold at second base Mookie Wilson, who is playing a shallow center field. Made it impossible for Quintana to try to go to third, and he doesn't have much speed anyway.
Now, even with Quintana on the run, the ball's hit so sharply. Got no chance to do that. But another great at-bat by Wade Boggs. Look at that hit right down on the ball. Watch the eyes and the head. Watch the ball meet the bat. And that's why your average is over 300 every year.
And right now, Galen Cisco, the Blue Jays pitching coach, is coming to the mound. Leiter and Ward have been throwing for Toronto. Stottlemyre has done a terrific job. The Red Sox now with 5 hits, but for the first time today, back-to-back base hits here in the 6th inning.
2 guys the Red Sox need some production from in this weekend, and they've had it lately, are Burks and Greenwell. So I would not look for Burks, the cleanup hitter, to be trying to sacrifice bunt in this situation. That's probably what Cisco is talking to Todd Stottlemyre about, as well as giving those relievers a little more time to get ready.
Relievers are ready.
Yeah. And see, if you bunt Burks here, now it allows Toronto to walk Greenwell, so you've taken the bat out of the hands of both of those 2 guys, and Evans has not had a good series.
Ellis Burks has sacrificed only twice this season. Twice this year. He's 0 for 2 in the game. Gruber at third is playing a step back of the bag. Infield is shortened up on the right side, and a call strike to Burks. 0-1. Todd Stottlemyre trying to pitch out of a jam here in the 6th inning, trying to keep the Red Sox lead to only 1-0. 1-1 now to Burks.
You might say, why would you bunt with your cleanup hitter anyway? Hey, in last night's game, George Bell, who has never had a sacrifice bunt in the major leagues, tried it twice. He bunted into a force play. So these managers know the importance of 1 run late in the ball game.
Greenwell is on deck, and the question will be whether Leiter will come in for Stottlemyre. to face Greenwell after this batter. Here's the 1-1 pitch. Check swing and a good breaking ball. Took something off the pitch. And the count now is 1-2.
It's probably the one area where Ellis Burks is most vulnerable, and a lot of hitters are.
One and two. Nobody out. Runners at first and second. And time is called. Stottlemyre 0-2 against the Red Sox this year, but has pitched well against them. Swing and a miss, and Burks goes after a bad pitch and strikes out. Out number 1 here in the 6th inning, and a tough man retired for Todd Stottlemyre. That is his 8th strikeout of the game.
Number 39.
Right now, we'd like to welcome the viewers who've been watching the San Diego-Cincinnati game, and the Padres leading 3-1. Rain delay in the 7th inning at Riverfront Stadium. Welcome to Fenway Park. Dick Stockton along with Jim Kaat in a critical American League East battle. The Red Sox lead the Blue Jays 1-0, and here's how the 1 run was scored in the 5th.
And Tom Bernansky got a pitch down around thigh high, and in Fenway Park, when you get the bat head out and get it lifted, no doubt about this. And Bruno's enjoying it. 2 home runs in 2 days for a guy who's not been productive in the first part of the season.
So Bernansky has accounted for the run, and Roger Clemens has pitched shutout ball through the first 6 innings. Right here, Mike Greenwell takes ball 1. So Stottlemyre, who has tied his career high with 8 strikeouts in a game, is pitching to Greenwell, the left-handed batter. 1 out and runners at first and second. Greenwell 1 for 2 today. Fouls back of Heater, and it's 1-1.
Yeah, that strikeout of Burks, not an easy thing to do. The way Ellis Burks has been swinging the bat buys Todd Stottlemyre a chance to stay in the game. If he doesn't get Burks, chances are lighters in here facing Greenwell.
Time call. Tony Fernandez going over to the mound. There's Burks, who was struck out twice today.
See, when he has an at-bat like that last one, when Ellis Burks just waved at that pitch, that's when people say, he's not putting the effort into it. But you could see all he wanted to do is try to hit the ball the other way and advance the runners. Very defensive swing.
Foul ball out of play. Wes Gardner, who was up earlier for the Red Sox, continues to throw. There's Gardner, former Met. Just joined us. There's plenty at stake here. The Red Sox, by virtue of their win last night in a dramatic 9th inning rally, lead the Blue Jays by 1 game. After this afternoon's contest, there are 4 games left, and so the Red Sox can assure themselves of having the lead going into the final 3 days with a win here. Misses outside. 2-2. Quintana at second, Boggs at first with 1 away. White Evans waiting to hit for Boston.
Well, you can see even with Stottlemyre and Myers, we've seen a lot of the hesitation with Pena and Clemens. Each pitch much more deliberate as you get down to the end of this game. Well, sometimes you study along, you study wrong.
Just let it happen, and now Myers goes to the mound, and once again,
Well, see, the dilemma here, Dick, is that Greenwell, the last half of the season, has started to pull the ball. Early in the year, fastballs in on his fist, he had no chance, fouling him off and popping him up to the left side. Now he's started to pull the ball, so they're a little hesitant to come inside. And yet, as we've said, when you pitch left-handers outside in this ballpark, it gives them such a nice shot at driving it off the wall. And that's what I think Myers and Stottlemyre are discussing right now. Where do you want to go, inside or outside?
and Greenwell thinking along with that possibility, looking for a pitch in one of those areas.
Well, and with 2 strikes, he's just been so much quicker and so much more confident since wearing that ankle brace. Bat speed has picked up.
Missing outside. They went away this time, and the count is full to Greenwell. 3-2.
Wow. Todd Stottlemyre looking in at Drew Coble. I don't blame him. But Coble has been pretty consistent the entire game. There have been a lot of borderline pitches on that outside corner. Oh.
And Cito Gaston may have been ejected for the 7th time this year.
Now Coble's the guy that got Cal Ripken. That doesn't happen very often.
Gaston has had his problems with Joe Brinkman's crew. They kicked him out on 3 of the 6 occasions.
See, I don't. Drew Coble's a professional big league umpire, but I don't go with this. Big series, and the umpires used to kind of be like grandfathers. They let you have your say, hey, okay, you've harped enough, and I'm going to turn my back on it. But now you see the umpires charge toward the dugouts as if they want to encourage players and managers to get involved in an argument.
You know, Coble is acting almost apologetic that he has thrown Gaston out of the game.
I mean, you got to expect in a series like this, the players and the managers and coaches are going to be emotional. The umpires don't have anything to be emotional about. Nothing at stake for them.
You know, even if that's a manager getting mad, Gaston looks like the friendliest mad manager that I've ever seen.
One of the things you want to do as a manager is protect your players and let them know you care. On close pitches, you're not going to just sit there and say nothing.
Well,
I think it was one of his coaches or players standing near the end of the dugout that might have been the one that Drew Coble threw out.
so Gaston still against the post there. We'll see who got thrown out. Somebody apparently did, judging by the sign from Drew Coble. Luff to second base. No one was covering. Quintana looks as if Galen Cisco, the pitching coach, might have been ejected. We don't see him right around Gaston anymore, and it was Galen Cisco. Here's the 3-2 pitch. Ball 4 low, and the bases are loaded. And a big opportunity for the Red Sox here as Greenwell draws a walk. He's been aboard twice today.
Well, pretty good discipline right here if you're Mike Greenwell, and yet unless you're just flat out fooled. I mean, yes, that ball's borderline, but a little low. Runners on the move. Greenwell, by taking it, risks, of course, being called out and the runner thrown out. Instead, they've got the bases loaded.
Conference of the mound with Fernandez, Myers, and Stottlemyre. Dwight Evans coming to the plate, and Gaston is coming out of the dugout, and that may be all for Stottlemyre. He's got Dwayne Ward, the right-hander, and he wants Ward.
Ward's guy did a good job last night. It was Kelly Gruber's 2 errors that got the Red Sox run off Dwayne Ward. He's been a good part of about a 4-man bullpen here for the Blue Jays. It's been very effective.
So Todd Stottlemyre works 5 1/3 innings. Gives up 5 hits and 1 run and strikes out 8 to match a career high. But he gave up a home run, and he happened to be going against Roger Clemens on a day he returns from inactivity, and Clemens is sharp. We'll be back to Fenway Park in just a moment. And Dwayne Ward, who is making his 72nd appearance, second to Bobby Thigpen's 73, has pitched more innings than any other time in his career, is coming on to face Dwight Evans. He has 11 saves. Let's take a look at some other leading relievers in baseball. We mentioned Thigpen, of course, the Eck in Oakland, Dennis Eckersley, John Franco, and Myers at Cincinnati.
Eckersley's got the best percentage. I don't think anybody will ever break Thigpen's record. And Dwayne Ward, what he brings to this situation right now, he's only given up 1 home run. He throws a heavy, sinking fastball.
Bases are loaded. Quintana is at third. Wade Boggs at second. Mike Greenwell is the runner at first. 1 out. 1-0 Boston. Ward's first pitch in there for a strike.
Good fastball. When you say heavy ball, what is that? Well, the only way baseball people have been able to figure that out is a pitcher that appears to throw the ball through the catcher, almost like he's throwing it to the backstop. It's got that heavy sinking spin, and hitters will say when they hit it, it's like hitting a shot put.
Dwight Evans has 5 career Grand Slam homers, in case you were wondering. 0-1 the count, and time is called, but this year Evans has managed 3 hits in 20 appearances with the bases loaded. Stottlemyre kind of vocal on the bench. He's responsible for all 3 base runs.
Hey, if you care about winning, you're going to let your feelings be known. Can't blame him for that.
Fastball misses. 1 ball, 1 strike. Nothing. The Red Sox have out-hit the Blue Jays 5-4. Evans, the old pro, will be 39 years old in November. Ground ball right side. It'll go through for a base hit. Quintana will score. Boggs will score. Going to third is Greenwell, and the ball hits him. And he's in safely. And Dwight Evans drives in 2 runs. And the Red Sox now lead 3-0. With RBIs, 59 and 60.
Well, they had the ceremony outside of Fenway Park this morning to remove the curse of the Bambino. And what we've seen in the last game and a half might be an indication of that. I mean, this is just a little dribbling ground ball that gets through the drawn-in infield, and the Red Sox get 2 runs. And then to add to that, Junior Felix with a strong throw to third. And I think Mike Greenwell would have been out, but the throw hits him. So Greenwell is safe. Still only 1 out.
And the Red Sox with runners at first and third. And Tom Brunansky, who homered into the net his last time up. There goes Evans on the pitch, taken for a strike. The throw to second, and Evans beats the throw. He got in under the tag by Fernandez, and that's his 2nd stolen base of the year.
One of those little mistakes, those subtle mistakes that can cost you. Now, right here, Myers looks Greenwell back, and the strong throw to Manny Lee, but he's too far in front of the bag. By the time he reaches back, he can't make the tag. If you're going to be that close to the bag, you might as well be on it and try to make the out. If you're concerned about the guy scoring from third, you come in about 10 feet.
And the infield is now drawn in a bit. The count to Brunansky is 0-1 with runners at second and third. No force play in effect with 1 out. There's a drive deep to left field. Looking up, it's gone. Another home run for Tom Brunansky.
Said Dwayne Ward doesn't give up many home runs. Wow. Brunansky with his 3rd one in the last game and a half. He is a great low ball hitter, and he's the kind of hitter when he gets on a tear can get you a bunch of them in a hurry.
Here's Tony Pena, takes the strike. So Dwayne Ward has been tagged. Dwight Evans with a roller base hit to right. And then Brunansky with his 2nd home run in as many innings, a 3-run blast. And it's 6-0. Boston with 5 runs here in the 6th, and still only 1 out. Ward had given up, as you mentioned, only 1 home run.
Didn't we say don't try to predict this series? Just sit back and watch what happens.
He said that at the top of the game.
Another example. And his line is not going to look good, but I'll tell you what, Todd Stottlemyre did a great job matching pitches with Roger Clemens.
Yes, he did. Pena, pop fly, McGriff with a play, and he makes the catch right in back of the tarp for out number 2. About
23 years ago, the Red Sox won a pennant here. McGriff go over near the tarp right there and make that catch. They won a pennant, and it was Carl Yastrzemski that had a big weekend. I think he only made 1 out in 2 games. I would have thought Burks or Greenwell would have been that guy, but this weekend appears like it's going to be Brunansky.
7 RBIs in the last 3 games, including 4 today. 2 down to Luis Rivera, and he takes ball 1. So Rivera is the 8th man to bat here in the 6th inning for the Red Sox. Padres lead the Reds 3-1, but if the Giants beat the Dodgers, it's over in the West in the National League. Broken bat, soft liner, and Fernandez makes the catch to retire the side. But listen to the cheers as the Red Sox get 5.
Sox have not hit a lot of home runs in Fenway Park. Why? Because there's not a lot of guys that lift the ball, but there's one, Bernansky. He likes the ball down in the strike zone, and he lifts it. See so many hitters today get down on the ball and drive it through the infield. And when he gets on a tear like this, there's a guy that can have a hot week for you and be the difference between winning a division and finish second.
And a new pitcher for the Red Sox is right-hander Wes Gardner, as Roger Clemens is through for the day. And what a return he made. John Olerud, the batter, and he takes a pitch for ball one. I don't know how many people really expected Roger Clemens to work 6 innings, pitch shutout ball, allow 4 hits, and strike out 5, but that's what he did. As Gardner fires a fastball past Olerud, 1-1.
Well, what Clemens did was phenomenal, but what's happened to the Red Sox? I mean, Joe Morgan could not have things going better. He gets the 5 spot in the 6 so he can lift Clemens.
Gardner making his 33rd appearance of the year, and a foul ball off the fist of Olerud. Gardner has started 9 games. The rest have been in relief. He has not chalked up a save yet. He's won 3 and lost 7 and an earned run average of 4.76. He last worked 4 days ago, pitching 2 innings of relief against the Indians. He was on the disabled list at the end of July with a sore right elbow as Olerud fouls off another pitch.
I'll tell you what, chances are these last 3 innings, it's going to look like a pitching tryout camp in that Boston bullpen, because as soon as the Blue Jays get a man on, you're going to see maybe Anderson, maybe Gray, maybe Murphy, because Joe Morgan does not have one guy down there he's got a lot of confidence in. He just keeps switching from one to the other.
1-2 pitches up high. With Clemens working today and Boddicker yesterday, the plan, of course, was Boddicker to pitch the last game of the regular season against the White Sox if that game means something. But now, if they need a 1-game playoff, after what Clemens has done today, he would be the perfect guy for that, and that's when his rotation will come. It's a ball as Pena appealed to third base umpire Jim McKean, and the count is 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Jim McKeon's not going to be intimidated by the home crowd or Tony Pena. Pena does a good acting job here trying to make it look like it was strike 3, but Olerud truly held up on that.
Gardner's 3-2 pitch misses inside. So Olerud draws a walk. At the conclusion of today's game, Jim Kaat and I will select the Chevrolet Most Valuable Player of the game, although Jim's vote counts a little more than mine.
It does?
Yes.
1.5?
Something like that. Chevrolet will donate $1,000 in the player's behalf to the Special Olympics. Greg Myers, the batter, he's 0 for 2. Bounced into a double play and was out. Clemens hustled to first base on a throw from Quintana, takes a call strike. Red Sox with bullpen activity. Dennis Lamp, the veteran right-hander, starts the throw.
Let's see, he's been the last pitcher that's pitched effectively out of that bullpen, so Joe Morgan says that's who I'm going to.
Hot hand time. 1 ball and 1 strike to Myers.
And the one thing that can kill the momentum of what the Red Sox have going this afternoon is if Gardner goes out there like he is right now and falls behind hitters and walks. You can give up a couple hard hit balls, give up a hit or 2, and then maybe somebody will hit one at somebody. But boy, managers get frustrated when you bring a relief pitcher in and he just can't get the ball over the plate.
That's what happened to Henke last night. I mean, he fell behind every hitter. Was 2-0, walked actually the first man he faced, and it proved to be his downfall. Olerud, the runner at first base. 6-0, the Red Sox lead. Nobody out here in the Toronto 7th. Wow, 2-1. Where was that pitch? Gardner's wondering.
Now Coble's going to get a little heat from the Red Sox dugout. I mean, that baby's belt high in the outside corner.
Gardner had an injury-marred season last year, was on the disabled list twice. Fouled away. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Gardner, a former New York Met.
Morgan has a number of guys down in that bullpen that are used to saving games. Gardner's one of them. You know, a great year at Tidewater, AAA club of the Mets. He was going to be their closer back in the mid-'80s.
Pena couldn't find the ball for a moment, but no advance. Well, it was Calvin Schiraldi who came around along with Gardner. Schiraldi was supposed to be the starter. He ended up pitching in relief.
You see Tony Pena, I know what he's hollering at Gardner. Hey, let it go, throw it over, give us a chance. Our horse went out there and got us 6 shutout innings, and we got the lead.
Chopper to first base. Quintana, who was not holding the runner on, with a 6-run lead.
Looked like Coble stepped out, maybe called that a foul ball. Joe Morgan's going to come out to contest it.
And apparently, that's the call, so they're going to send Olerud back to first base. It'll go as a foul ball.
Now, does it go off his foot? Let's take a look at it. That looked like it hit ahead of his foot. But Drew Coble immediately jumped out from behind home plate. From that look right there, looked like it was a fair ball.
Morgan back to the dugout, and the count is 3 balls and 2 strikes to Myers. So Gardner has come in. He walked Olerud, has gone to the full count on Myers, and certainly is not being aggressive with the hitters with a 6-run lead here. Quintana moves back, not holding the runner on. The pitch outside, ball 4. So Gardner walks the first 2 batters to face him in the 7th inning. And right now, for an update, here's Pat O'Brien in New York. Pat?
Actually, Dick, this is a rain update. When they stopped the game in Cincinnati, the score was 3-1. San Diego Padres win. It may be raining at Riverfront, but it may not matter, because right now at Candlestick Park, they are at the bottom of the 8th. The Giants got out of a mess at the top of the 8th, and the Giants still lead the Dodgers 4-3 in the 8th inning. If the Giants win, and even if Cincinnati loses, Cincinnati clinches the National League West, the division they've led all season. Let's go back to Boston.
All right, Pat, thank you very much. Joe Morgan's coming out to the mound. Let's see if he has seen enough of 2 walks in the first 2 batters in the 7th inning. He's got Lamp, and Lamp has gotten the call. So Gardner doesn't get the job done in relief of Roger Clemens. And Morgan's going to make a pitching change right here. Dennis Lamp comes in, and we'll take a break from Fenway Park. We'll be back in a moment. Dennis Lamp is now in. He pitched for them from the 84 to 86 season. And Lamp now is going to be making his 46th appearance of the year. All but one of those appearances has been in relief. And Jim Eppert has come up now.
Hey, good
as
to see
hitter.
A few names with the expanded rosters. Jim Eppert really was a product of the California Angels organization.
He's batting for Manny Lee with 2 on and nobody out, and a fastball is in for a strike. And you know, Lamp's instruction, just throw the ball over.
Yeah, and he's got that good sinking fastball. One of the things, if he's on his game, he can get you a double play ball, but you saw what happened to Dwayne Ward. Got that ball about bell time.
Fastball, 1-1 now to Eppert. John Olerud, the runner at second base. Greg Myers at first, both walked. Wes Gardner was relieved after facing those 2 hitters. Roger Clemens, the pitcher of record, in a 6-0 Boston lead. 1-1 pitch, foul, out of play to the left.
Yeah, if you're the Blue Jays and you're down 6, that's critical, but it's not as if you were the Red Sox and down 6. See, the Blue Jays have that capability. Only the Tigers have hit more home runs than they have, so they can get back in the ball game in a hurry with a long ball.
Eppert led the American International League in batting, hitting .310. Native of South Bend, Indiana. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Line to center field, stays up long enough for Burks to reach it. Runners go back, and there's 1 away. The scene is Fenway Park, and the lights have been turned on in a very important September battle for divisional honors. The Red Sox lead the Blue Jays 6-0. The big story, Roger Clemens working 6 innings of shutout ball, and Tom Bernansky with 2 homers driving in 4 runs today. Dick Stockton and Jim Kaat with you. And there's the way the standings look right now in the American League East.
And that game today, if it holds up, give Boston that 2-game lead. Boy,
big one.
Gives them a lot of options. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Clemens comes back after pitching today, and if he will be available later if they need a playoff or even in the league championship series.
Here's Junior Felix. Been retired twice today. Tried to bunt his way on his last at bat. Ball one outside. It would be huge for the Red Sox to have a 2-game lead with 4 to play. Win the first 2 games of a series like this, it's major. Fly ball to left field, long run for Greenwell. And Mike makes the catch in fair territory, and the runners go back. Good hustle by Greenwell, who was shaken up earlier. Bring up to date on scores around the league. The Giants leading the Dodgers 4-3. If the Dodgers are retired and don't tie the game, the Reds will have clinched the American League, the National League Western Division. Their game is 3-1. The Reds are losing. There's a rain delay in the 7th inning. Pirates have wrapped up with an 8-0 tie. Magic number is 1, but they've clinched a tie as the Mets lost and the Pirates won.
And you look at that Reds score, and people say, well, yeah, the Reds going to sit back and they'll back in. They won that division early in the year when they piled up that big lead.
Here's Mookie Wilson, 1 for 3 with a double. Ball 1. Very quiet dugout on the Toronto side, as you would expect. Pop up, playable for Wade Boggs in foul territory. And Dennis Lamp comes in and closes the door. Blue Jays lead 2. We go to the bottom of the 7th, 6-0 Red Sox. Well, the report on Roger Clemens, who worked 6 innings and pitched shutout ball, 4 hits, and a tremendous return, is that his arm felt fine. Good news, just got a little tired, and he was seen by one of our people running around the ballpark, getting some running in. Isn't that great?
Burning off a little energy. I'll tell you, and he's got to have plenty of it. I mean, the adrenaline, not only for him, but for his ball club. I thought just going out today, and maybe if he pitched an inning or 2, it would be such a boost for the Red Sox. But to do what he did, 25 days off, that kind of control, just incredible. And it's obviously putting this team in a real good position to win the American League East.
They're the remaining games after today for the Red Sox. They're home, of course, and the Blue Jays are on the road. Keep in mind, the Blue Jays knew they had the last 9 games away. They lost 2 out of 3 to Cleveland, 2 out of 3 to Milwaukee. If they lose this one, they have lost the first 2 to the Red Sox. Al Leiter is the new pitcher for the Blue Jays. He's the third pitcher of the day. Luis Sojo replaces Manny Lee at second base. Jody Reed leads off in the bottom of the 7th inning. Reed, 1 for 2 with a double, is also walked. And the left-hander Leiter pitches ball 1.
And once again, fitting with this series of everything going about the opposite of what you'd expect, the Blue Jays, their bullpen really has kept them in the game all year, kept them in the race.
Word out of Cincinnati as Reed takes a call striker that it's still raining, and they're going to wait about another 35 minutes as the Padres lead the Reds 3-1. Here's the 1-1 of Jody Reed. Ground ball to shortstop. Fernandez. And there's one away in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Mentioned the Blue Jay bullpen that's been so effective all year. Yet here you come into these 2 games. You bring Tom Hinkie in last night with a 1-run lead. You figure, hey, game over. Dwayne Ward's done a great job, only giving up 1 home run. What happens? Bernansky takes him deep. Everything has gone the opposite way.
Well, the Cincinnati Reds don't have to worry about playing that game because the Dodgers have lost, and the Cincinnati Reds, wire to wire, have won the National League Western Division title. A great job for Lou Piniella in his first year after the disappointment he had with the Yankees.
Yeah, got a chance to go over there without a lot of the distractions that he had in New York, and congratulations to Lou Piniella and the Cincinnati Reds.
2 balls and a strike to Quintana, make it 1-0 to Quintana. And of course, the Pirates have clinched a tie. They can do no worse than tie, with them winning today and the Mets losing.
Early in the year, it was Jack Armstrong and Dibble and Myers, that strong bullpen. Charlton was in the bullpen, and that's where they built up that big lead. Pinella's job now, get that pitching staff reorganized and get it ready for whoever they play in the league championship series.
Here's the 2-1 pitch. In there for a strike. 2-2 to Quintana with 1 out. On deck is Wade Boggs. Reds got off to a great start. Really have played just about 500 ball since the All-Star break. Here's a pop-up. McGriff gives chase, and he could have made the play. It bounces because he was right near the camera and the tarp, and it'll go as no play.
Yeah, Fred lost it. Looked like he got caught up over there right where the camera is down the first baseline. You see him check to see where the railing is, and then right there where he just bumps into the camera, can't get around the corner to make the catch.
And Bob Dekas and Bob Fishman in the truck have told us most vehemently that is not a CBS camera.
We wouldn't put a camera there.
And we move it away if we could. 2 balls and 2 strikes. 3-2, and it's ball 4. And Quintana is on. Here are the standings right now in the National League. The Pirates clinched a tie, and the Reds have clinched the title. And here's Wade Boggs, who is 1 for 3 with a single. He scored on Dwight Evans' bases loaded opposite field base hit in the 6th inning. Prior to Tom Bernansky's 3-run homer. Pitch up high to Boggs.
Al Leiter, remember his early days with the Yankees? Boy, they thought he was going to be another Ron Guidry, and the Yankees traded him to Toronto for Jesse Barfield. He's had a lot of arm problems last couple years.
Line drive, left field, drifting foul, and out of play.
There's Joe Morgan right now with this 6-0 lead, and if you're a Red Sox player or coach, you're not even concerned. You'd like to have extra runs, but that's not the main concern. Old Joe, working on his split finger grip there, says, just get me some pitchers that can throw the ball over the plate and get them out for a couple more innings.
Here's the 1-1 pitch. In the air to left center field. On the warning track is George Bell, and that's the 2nd out. 2 down, and Quintana goes back to first base. Blue Jays with bullpen activity, left-hander John Cerruti and Rick Lucan, who was acquired from the Atlanta Braves. They're working right now.
Yeah, this is kind of expanded roster. Get a few guys in there because Cito Gaston sees this game 6 runs down. He's going to save the critical guys and try to win tomorrow's game.
Here's Alex Burks, who is 0 for 2 with a walk. Ball 1, 2 men out, and the big production for the Red Sox today have come in the close to the bottom 3rd of the order. There are the pitchers, Cerruti and Lucan. Evans driving in 2 runs with a single, and Bernansky 4 RBIs with a pair of home runs. Breaks inside for the strike. 1-1 now for Burks. Carlos Quintana, he's the runner at first base. Griff playing behind him. Line drive to center field. Mookie Wilson makes the catch to retire the side. We go to the 8th at Fenway Park. The Red Sox with a 6-0 bulge. Boone over Boston, and it's a happy Boston. Fenway Park crowd. A lot of the pressure and the tension is off with the Red Sox with a 6-0 lead. Roger Clemens, who's reported after he went into the dressing room that his arm is fine. And you're right, he could be used if they need a tiebreaker, but more important, he could be the #1 Game 1 starter against the Oakland A's if the Red Sox go on and win this division race.
That's what Joe Morgan is hoping for. Red Sox been looking for a red October. They don't have many of those here up in Fenway. Not enough of them anyway.
Dennis Lamp, the third Red Sox pitcher of the day, facing Tony Fernandez. And the first pitch is in for a strike. The Red Sox with 6 runs, 7 hits, and no errors. The Blue Jays, no runs, 4 hits, and no errors. Fernandez has one of those hits, a single. Missing outside.
The plus that the Red Sox have also, and it's been a remarkable recovery by Jeff Reardon, who had back surgery, is he's saved the game in Detroit the other night, won the game last night. He could be a big factor the Red Sox get to postseason play.
Ground ball to the right side and through, and Fernandez has his second hit of the game, and he's aboard for the 3rd time. Hit number 5 for the Blue Jays. If you've just joined us, Roger Clemens worked 6 innings. Threw a lot of pitches, but the numbers show what he did. Tom Brunansky, the batting star, and he's coming alive just when the Red Sox need him in the latter stages. Here's Kelly Gruber, who's 0 for 3 today. Had his 15-game hitting streak snapped last night. Breaking ball in for strike 1. Gruber is 0 for 7 in the series after wielding a hot bat throughout the month of September. Off the end of the bat, a slow roller to Reed. The throw to first in time. Fernandez goes to second. Right now, we're going to send you to Pat O'Brien. Pat?
Dick, it may be raining at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, but you are looking at a celebration of the National League West champions. The Dodgers, just a few moments ago, lost to the Giants in San Francisco and in the rain. The celebration goes on in Cincinnati, and look at the players diving onto the tarp. It's a game of kids, folks. Congratulations to Cincinnati. Let's go back to Dick.
All right, Pat, thank you very much. Ball 1, the count to Fred McGriff with Fernandez at second and 1 out. Of course, you know that experience, Jim.
Slide down the tarp. Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Celebrate after.
Does this game make you a kid? It's a great feeling. Of course, now it's just the first of 3. You got to discipline yourself as a player not to get too high. You want to win the division, then you want to win the pennant, then you want to win the big one.
Here's the 1-1 pitch. Fastball in for a strike. Jeff Gray, who worked last night throwing in the Red Sox bullpen. What about the Reds' possibilities and the way their pitching could play out?
Well, there's going to be a couple of days off between games 2 and 3 in that National League.
McGriff strikes out for out number 2.
And that can be a factor. This factor right here is a breaking ball by Lamp that he breaks down and in, and McGriff just swings right over it. What could be a factor is the Reds have Rijo and now Tom Browning, who's come back from an ankle injury after Jack Armstrong has had some arm problems since his success early in the year. So they could set it up where if they get 2 strong starters, it actually could get through the league championship series, just 2 starting pitchers and a good bullpen. Dibble and Myers, maybe Charlton.
2 out, Fernandez at second. George Bell has sandwiched a couple of strikeouts around a double. Red Sox leading 6-0 here in the top of the 8th inning. And the late afternoon haze is looming large over Fenway Park now. Swing and a miss. Sweeping breaking ball, and it's 2 strikes to Bell.
You know, all year long teams go with a 5-man rotation. 4-day rotation's a thing of the past, but when it comes to postseason play, you'd be amazed how effective pitchers can be on the 4th day, and I think you'll see a lot of that in the League Championship Series, maybe in the World Series.
Still not sure of Oakland's pitching plans, whether they're going to go with 3 or 4 pitchers. Here's the 0-2. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Of course, you got a Welsh and you got a Stewart, and you got the best 1-2 punch.
And you got the best bullpen. The Red Sox can match starters when you look at the numbers. The 3, 4, 5 starters, Kicker, Bolton, and Harris, have done just as well for the Red Sox when you look at earned run average and effective starts as Moore and Sanderson and Kurt Young have done for the A's. But it's that great bullpen where Oakland beat you an outstanding defense.
That's why Roger Clemens' performance today really boosts the Red Sox morale, their hopes. They're going to be running into a buzzsaw if they survive this division race. Here's the 1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Bell, who's hitting .135 against the Red Sox this year. It's Dennis Lamp, who has started 1 game this year. His last appearance 2 days ago in Detroit in that makeup game, which the Red Sox won. Lamp worked 2/3 of an inning. 2 out. Fernandez, the runner at second. And Bell strikes out to retire the side. No runs, a hit, 1 left. We move to the last of the 8th of a Boston party here. Six to nothing Boston, and as we get close, Jim, to the end of the regular season, a lot of memories of this season.
Yeah, I think individual accomplishments are terrific. All of these guys, Nolan Ryan for one, very proud of the 300 wins, and he should be, and Carlton Fisk, but I'll tell you what, they'd rather be playing for what the Red Sox in Toronto are playing for, and Ricky Henderson with that accomplishment right there, he'll be in the postseason play.
Mike Greenwell.
And a new pitcher, Rick Lucan, is now working for the Blue Jays. Todd Stottlemyre worked 5 1/3 innings. Then Dwayne Ward, who gave up 3 runs. Stottlemyre gave up 3. Al Leiter and now Rick Lucan. And we go to the bottom of the 8th inning, Mike Greenwell. Red Sox have Joe Hesketh, a left-hander, who would have been the pitcher today if Clemens had not been able to go. And he's loosening up in the Boston bullpen. Greenwell is 1 for 2 with a single, has also walked, and he takes the ball 2-0 now. Three balls and no strikes. Lucan came from the Atlanta Braves organization.
And also in the Kansas City organization. Another example of what Cito Gaston is doing right here, just giving guys like Lucan a chance to finish this game because of the importance now of tomorrow's game for the Blue Jays.
3-0 now to Greenwell. Lucan was 1-4 with the Braves this season. 3 balls and a strike to count to him. On the corner, 3-2. Roger Clemens, it lowers his earned run average to 1.93 with his 6 innings of shutout ball today. And he has pitched 17 straight scoreless innings against the Blue Jays. Of course, we saw 9 of those in August up in the Sky Dome. Ball 4 outside, and Greenwell walks for the second time. Well, Thursday night it all gets underway. Game 1 at 8 o'clock Eastern, Friday, an afternoon game, 3 o'clock Eastern. The first 2 games of the National League Championship Series in the American League gets underway Saturday. Game 1 at 8 o'clock Eastern.
Kevin Romine running for
Kevin
Greenwell.
Romine will go in and pinch run now for Mike Greenwell.
You mentioned Clemens lowering that earned run average. That points up an interesting situation that writers are going to be faced with. You know, say Dave Stewart and Welch are the leading candidates for the Cy Young. Clemens could well be your most valuable player.
Here's Dwight Evans. Evans with the bases loaded in the 6th inning. Hit a slow roller that found its way through the hole on the right side. A 2-run single that set the stage for Tom Brunansky's 3-run homer that has put this one right now out of reach for Boston. Pitch is low, 1-1.
You know, I'm sure in Detroit they're howling and saying, wait a minute, Cecil Fielder's the guy, and hey, he's as valuable to the Tigers as you can find. I'm not so sure that a starting pitcher can't be considered for the most valuable player.
1-2 to Evans.
I mean, the way to judge that, first of all, I wish they'd change the award. I wish they had like a Lou Gehrig award or a Joe DiMaggio award and give it to Fielder for the best offensive performance. But most valuable player is a guy that if you take him away from that team, what does it do to that team?
Ground ball hit to Fernandez. He goes over to Soho for 1. Double play, and there are 2 down. Well, let's talk about the most valuable player award, because Ricky Henderson, maybe the most dangerous offensive player in the league. And now you got Cecil Fielder, who's on the brink of 50 home runs and leading the league in RBIs as well, just to name 2.
Yeah, I take nothing away from what Ricky Henderson has done and what he means to that ball club. But he's missed a lot of games. So has Canseco. And yet the A's keep winning. Eckersley might be the most valuable player on that ball club, or Dave Henderson. But I don't think there's anyone more valuable to a team than Roger Clemens.
And Tom Bernansky with 3 homers in 2 games, 7 RBIs in the last 3 games. Count is 1 ball and 1 strike. Tom Bernansky, what a time for the Red Sox to see their really main right-handed power hitter start to come alive. 2 out, nobody on base. Bottom of the 8th inning. Lukin throws that all the way back.
Now, the key to playing well in series like this and games like this is you want to be intense without being tense. That's easy to say, sometimes hard to do. But Bernansky has been through it with the Minnesota Twins when they won the World Series in 1987. And he is a very loose, relaxed guy.
Fastball in tight.
You know, and if you've done the physical preparation, the mental preparation, day in, day out, 162 games, when you come to a game like this, the pressure is not going to affect you as much as if all of a sudden you walk into the park and say, oh man, we're playing for the division title. That's like cramming for a test. Most of the time you fail.
Here's a drive. Let's see if it'll be a home run. It is. Another one for Bernansky. His last 3 times up, 4 homers in the last 2 games. And Bernansky has exploded, and the Red Sox lead it now 7-0.
Chances are this will be down again, and it is. All those scouts sitting behind the stands, that's what they're writing down. Don't throw this guy a fastball down and in, because he'll lift it and do what he's done today 3 times. First time since 1983 that a Red Sox hitter connected for 3 home runs in a game. Jim Rice was the last to do it. And as Bernansky found the Fenway swing in the nick of time, as far as the Red Sox are concerned, and Tony Pena takes ball 2, 2-0. He had not hit a home run, Bernansky, since September 3rd, a long drought for him. In for the strike. Joe Morgan's had the right hunches. You know, Mike Marshall played out there for a while. About 3 weeks ago, Bernansky was benched for a few days. He went in and said to Morgan, why am I not playing? Joe said, in his typical way, well, I just had a hunch. Well, now he's got a hunch he ought to be in there, and it's paying off. And the hunch guy, Bernansky, is hitting 7th in the batting order. Burks was hitting 7th earlier in the year, but his production elevated him to the 4th spot. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Tony Pena. Reaches out and fouls it off. So the Red Sox here in the bottom of the 8th inning, leading 7-0. If they go on and win, that'll be 5 straight victories against the Blue Jays. Their closest tormentors, and a chance to open up a 2-game lead with 4 remaining. Not only 5 straight wins, but with the exception of last night's game, which was so bizarre, the Red Sox shut the Blue Jays out those last 3 games in the Sky Dome. And if they hold true today, that'd be 4 shutouts out of 5 games. Here's the 3-2 pitch, a line drive, base hit left field. George Bell will play it off the base of the wall. Gets by him, and Pena will sail into second with a double. That's the 9th hit of the game for the Red Sox. There's been a lot of hype about Roger Clemens today, and we're all aware of what he has accomplished. And now all of a sudden the starting pitcher in the limelight is Jimmy Key, the left-hander for the Blue Jays. And he's done, he's been in these big games before. He was the one back in '87 that really pitched an outstanding game against the Tigers, that outpitched by Frank Tanana. So he's accustomed to those kind of situations in what will be the biggest game of his season.
Luis Rivera, 0 for 3, the batter, 2 outs. Haney at second. Greg Harris will be on the mound for the Red Sox, and while Clemens, if he is all right and can pitch, and Boddicker, the Red Sox will have to identify who at least their third and maybe fourth pitcher would be if they win the division and play the A's.
That's a good point when you mentioned Mike Boddicker, who did a great job last night. The first 2/3 of that game didn't come away with the win. Since Boddicker has joined this staff in July of '88, his winning percentage is right there with Clemens. So it's not like you're dropping off a great deal from Clemens to Boddicker. He's very accomplished, a very effective starting pitcher, and accustomed to postseason play.
2 balls and no strikes. In for the strike. Blue Jays, despite a good road record this year, facing the obstacle of playing the last 9 games of the regular season away from home. Bounding ball, a Gruber at third base. And the side is retired, but Bernansky hits his 3rd home run of the game, and he'll get a hand as he takes the field. 7-0 Boston. This was the reaction to Tom Bernansky with the fans in right field and in the bleachers.
Hey, they followed him. Sure, they've given him some heat during the year for his lack of production, but they appreciate when a guy is productive like Bernansky has been the last 2 games.
Strike 1 to John Olerud. Top of the 9th inning. 7-0. Dennis Lamb trying to close the door and pick up a save if he can finish. The new left fielder Kevin Romine replaced Mike Greenwell. You know, the Temple of Doom attitude around the Boston camp after Clemens went out and they lost those games in Baltimore, lost 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, has been lifted, not only because of what Clemens has done, but when the Red Sox won this week against the Indians and then went to Detroit, it's a whole different attitude. Line drive, base hit for Olerud. First hit of the game.
Now see what the fans in Boston and the press, they're used to all the history, but a lot of these players, Jody Reed, Quintana, Rivera, they don't have any idea what's happened here in the past and don't care. And this ball club probably has more of a togetherness than a lot of the Red Sox teams in the past, and that's why they're overcoming some of that negative media hype.
Here's Myers, takes a strike. Big day today for the Cincinnati Reds. Even though a rain delay with the Padres leading 3-1 in the 7th inning. Pirates clinched a tie. The Mets lost. Force at second base, and on at first is Myers. But with the Giants beating the Dodgers, there was the big score today. The Cincinnati Reds clinched the National League West. And by the way, the Pirates, who have clinched a tie, Reds and Pirates, surprisingly enough, were the only teams not to win their respective division titles in the 1980s.
That tells you something about the amateur draft, because the Pirates and the Reds were dominant teams in the late 70s. As a result, they maybe didn't get a lot of the top draft choices that other teams did, and so the balance of power kind of equaled out a little bit.
Luis Sojo, the batter, up for the first time, went in as a defensive replacement.
Speaking of the Reds, remember Davey Concepcion, one of the great shortstops? Take a close look at Luis Sojo. And many say, with his mannerisms and actions, a Davey Concepcion look-alike. See him blinking those eyes, kind of some similarities there. Sojo hopes he has the career Concepcion had.
Half the career would be pretty good, huh? And a pop-up to the right side. Jody Reed. And there are 2 down. Well, tonight on CBS starts with Family Man, followed by the Hogan Family, Earth Force, and 48 hours. That's the lineup coming up tonight on CBS. 2 down in the top of the 9th inning, and Junior Felix, the batter, and the crowd on its feet. If you had written a script, it could not have gone any better for the Boston Red Sox today. Tom Bernansky with 3 homers in 3 at-bats after being retired his first time up. But more important, Roger Clemens, 6 innings of shutout ball. Ball 1.
There's Tom Bernansky, 3 home runs. It all really started in last night's game with the big 9th inning single by Jeff Stone, which erased a lot of questionable decisions that Joe Morgan had made, and he admitted that himself. He said, boy, Jeff Stone relieved a lot of pressure from me for not bringing Jeff Reardon into the game in the 9th inning.
Cito Gaston now is looking at a 2-game deficit. It's deflected off of Lamb's glove, and everyone's going to be safe. It'll be an infield hit for Junior Felix.